Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. My name is Nick. I am here with Chris. It is December the 16th of 2020, and we are here to do Weekly Manga Recap. Aren't we?
Nick?
You have a concern?
No. Well, consider us good friends, right, Nick?
I'd say that we're pretty good friends.
Yeah. We've been friends for well over a decade now. I think we've seen each other grow and change as individuals, been by each other's sides in turbulent times. So with that, I will forgive you this one time for not addressing me by my correct title, as I am Lord Christopher Larios now. A piece of land in Scotland has been purchased in my name, thus fulfilling the only requirement needed to deign myself as a lord, and I shall be addressed as such. People of Scotland, bow before your new god. My sister paid $35 to a website, and now I am your new ruler.
Did you, look up the rules of lordship and such before doing this, or did you just, lands of purchase in my name, that means I'm a lord, you just, know it in your bones?
It's like I hear it advertised on podcasts a lot, that it's one of those, it's like one of those places like, we'll name a star after you or something like that. There's a place in Scotland that I guess has just unusable land, but they're like, but if we sell this land in 5x5 plots or whatever, then you technically own a piece of Scottish land and are thus a lord. So that's how they get people. They advertise it as you become a lord, or I forget what the Scottish term for a lady is, a laird or something like that. I
think that actually is correct. I don't know. We've got people who know it better than we do.
Yes, but I shall be treated with my due respect. This title I absolutely earned and was not given in a gift.
Well, I apologize for my misconduct, Warlord T.
Yes, I like this.
And happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Those motherfuckers, they killed me in Among Us on my birthday, Nick. Can we also talk about that?
They did.
Those cocksuckers. The first game we did, the first person was the imposter, went straight down into the storage and murdered the shit out of me. I was the first one dead on my birthday.
Also, I have to point out that someone almost basically just gave away a game where I was an imposter because you said everyone has to watch me do Simon Says on my birthday, and we were like, yeah, okay, and one person didn't show up. And so I called a meeting, and it was like, the birthday party, we've got to get rid of him. And everyone was like, yes, you're right.
It was great. Fucking Corrito. Wasn't that my birthday party? Uh-oh. Do we lose Nick for a second? He's looking at his mic inquisitively. Oh, he has a cable in his hands. This is like a comedy routine. He held the cable up to the camera and kind of pulled it out with a look on his face, like an old Marx Brothers routine or something.
Yeah, I made a shocked reaction at it for 5 seconds and shook it around a bit before I actually did anything about it.
Yeah.
So I deserved that, I guess, for bragging about my imposter play. That's a faux pas. So, all right, Chris. We do have a thing that the episode is supposed to be structured around that we're supposed to be talking about at the beginning. So, if you're all right with it, I would like to talk about the series that I chose as a recommendation a few weeks ago.
I shall deign it to be such.
All right. I've got to run everything by you now. This is going to be so weird.
Remember, I have the people of Scotland at my back. Presumably. They probably hate me. But in my mind, they are a standing army for me to call upon when I need them. Or if nothing else, I want a man with a bagpipe behind me playing to basically affirm my own thoughts.
You don't have the full backing of the people, but you have a percentage of the backing of the people proportionate to the amount of land that a 5 foot by 5 foot square is to the whole of Scotland.
Do you think
so you ask for help, and people like they do consider it at least.
Do you think there's supposed to be meetings that are being held in Scotland about the future of the nation that I should be there to attend? And I'm like, as a lord, as a Scottish landowner.
You've been talking about being like Spanish and Irish all this time. It's like, oh, I guess we were completely off base with
and there's only one Scottish accent that I can do. I don't know, everybody. It's really Sean Connery.
This is bad. Before we go any further on that tangent, Quintessential Quintuplets. This is the manga that we've been reading. It is a manga series written by Negi Haruba, also known by its Japanese title Gotobun no Hanayome. It ran in Weekly Shonen magazine from August of 2017 until February of this year, 2020. And it is a harem romantic comedy series. I think that category best describes it. It's about this studious, kind of loner, stuck-up kid named Futaro, who his family is in a bad financial situation, so he accepts this job as a tutor of this wealthy girl, but it turns out that the girl that he's supposed to be tutor is not one girl, it is a group of 5 identical quintuplet sisters. And so Futaro's got to deal with the different personalities that they have in order to get them to be serious and study, because none of them are very gifted academically. A lot of them are disinterested in studying for their own various different reasons, and a lot of them don't like Futaro to start with for their own various different reasons. And the story follows as Futaro builds relationships with the girls in order to get them to trust him, helping them to do better in their studies, and I say eventually, but honestly, pretty quickly for some, and just a little bit later for others, the girls start to fall in love with Futaro, and there is a plot point early on that Futaro winds up marrying one of them in the future, and so it's kind of a who is he going to fall in love with and marry story, is one of the main hooks that begins the tale. So when I picked this story out as a recommendation, I noted the similarities it has with We Never Learn, which is a series, of course, we have been covering since the beginning. It began around the same time as this series, and if it had ended at one ending, it would have ended around the same time as this series. Yep. There's a lot of, cosmetic similarities. There's the tutoring thing, the 5 different love interests. The protagonist comes from a single parent household because one of his parents is dead. He's got a younger sibling. They aren't doing well financially, and various other things. But it's also a very different kind of story from We Never Learn, it turns out. We Never Learn is a lot more about actually like studying and tutoring and learning, whereas Quintessential Quintuplets is a lot more of I guess it's kind of more soap opera-y. Not necessarily in terms of tone, but in terms of the way that the plot moves forward.
Everything very dramatic, very theatrical at points. I'm trying to think if there's...
I describe it as...
I was trying to think if there's a moment in We Never Learn where they do the dramatic slap across the face, and I can't think of one, but there is very specifically one in Quintessential Quintuplets.
Quintessential Quintuplets I would describe more as dramedy, and We Never Learn I would describe more as cartoonish. There's a lot of larger-than-life things that happen in We Never Learn. In Quintessential Quintuplets, most things are pretty grounded, save just the coincidences that happen. There are a lot of things that happen in it that are, kind of beyond belief, but it's more just because, like, well, how did this turn out that this happened to happen and this happened to happen and this happened to happen? Is because, it's a drama, and so it just worked out that way. So, I don't have a whole lot of deep thoughts on the series. I didn't dislike Manga. I think that if you're the type of person who hears, kind of like dramedy, multiple love interests, who is, which of the characters do I like the most and is going to end up, living happily ever after, romantically speaking, I would say that this is probably, would be pretty good to recommend to someone who has those kind of tastes. I did not dislike it, but I guess I was also expecting it to, I guess mostly I was expecting it to be worse than it was.
Yeah. I mean, so this is another harem manga, and I think for a very long period of time when it came to reading harem manga, harem was like almost kind of a dirty word, because harem manga are usually, they're all the same. It's one guy who's usually as bland and boring as a character as possible because they want the audience to be able to insert themselves onto that character, with a group of attractive girls who gets into a ton of fan servicey situations, and it's generally not very good. It's usually just something there to kind of please ecchi fans. At least that's how I kind of viewed harem manga for a while. Nisekoi, that's why it felt like such a breath of fresh air, where I was like, oh, this actually feels like this is a story. And then with We Never Learn, it's like, holy cow, you can really write great things here. And I think with this series too, I'm like, wow, for a genre that I always equated with being very sexualized, this one very rarely goes to that level. In fact, it almost feels downright chaste in comparison to We Never Learn at times. I kept waiting for... Yes. I was like, wait, one of the girls isn't going to trip and fall into the other girls and grab their skirts as she falls to pull down both of their skirts? That doesn't happen. That's not a natural transition of scenes in this series. So I definitely appreciate that to a certain extent. And it does give me a different perspective of what a harem series could be. But at the same time, I do agree with you. I don't think it means I liked it either.
I'll give it credit for, I think that it is a quality enough story that, you can't just make those, oh, it's a harem series and just dismiss it out of hand like that. I think that there is a lot that has to do with the familial bond between the quintuplets and the way that, a lot of their characters are tied into that relationship that they have, in terms of the mental blocks that they have, in terms of the goals that they set for themselves and stuff like that. And also complicating the relationship that they have with Futaro as he's trying to get them to look out for their own individual success, basically. And I think the fact that I have a lot of qualms with the story, but the qualms are to the point of like, okay, I feel like this character isn't developed enough and this relationship isn't developed enough and stuff like that. That's about, other harem series that I have read. Like, I read To Loveru about 12-ish years ago, and it was mostly for the sake of just doing it to do it and to see how bad it was. And when I read it, I was like, the only thing that really surprised me was the lengths it would go to do fan service, really. Yeah. Everything else was just like, yeah, I mean, this is, it's a dumb little adventure, which is mostly just kind of a set of excuses for the main character to wind up face first in a girl's panties under some bizarre set of coincidences. There is some fan service in Quintessential Quintuplets, but it's very grounded. Yeah. There are occasions where Futaro, because he's coming into these girls' apartments in order to tutor them, that he finds them unexpectedly in compromising positions. There is a chapter structured around, oh, he accidentally came across one of the girls coming out of the shower in a towel, and it was an embarrassing, thing, and he got in a bit of trouble for it. But it's not like she was, posing with her boobs pushed out or anything like that. It's just he happened to come across her and she was wearing a towel in about the most modest way it could possibly be drawn, really.
Yeah.
So then it comes down to like, okay, well, here's the struggles that they're going through, the relationships that they have, and if it's at that level, I'm going to judge them on their own merits. And I didn't really like that, the story that in general, but it was for the reasons that I felt like I was supposed to judge it by. And I'm glad that, I think that the number of different series with the harem premise that we've covered at this point, if someone tells us, oh, it's a harem series, I think that I feel comfortable with, all right, well, it still might be worth checking out. So.
Yeah. So I don't know if we want to try to avoid spoilers or not. I'll say this. This is a series I knew essentially nothing about going into it. Didn't know anything. I did not realize how much it had surrounded me, just me being ignorant to the characters and things like that. Because immediately upon reading it, I started to see people talking about it all around me, and I presume it's not intentional, just by coincidence. I started to notice references people were making and things like that. A downside is I had the ending spoiled for me almost immediately. Like, I think I was maybe a volume and a half. Yeah, I got about a volume and a half into the series, found out who the girl was who wins at the end, and I was like, not who I would have picked.
Really?
And then I was like, kind of the most boring one, too. And then I read long enough that I was like, no, they're all kind of boring. And then I was like, you know what? Fine, whatever. Yeah, they all have their thing. Because for a while, I was like, I don't know. I just don't feel like this guy has any chemistry with this girl. And I was like, now that I think about it, he doesn't really have a lot of chemistry with any of the girls.
So here's the thing about Futaro. He's a grump. He is very much just about, I just want to study so that I can get a good job and I can help out my family. And I want to be the type of person who can be reliable and dependable and stuff like that. And that comes out in the sense that he really has a stick up his ass, and also he really looks down on the exact type of person that he is trying to help out, because all of these girls are, in his words, dumbasses, which is a very harsh way of looking at it. Look, the girls aren't dumb. Very few people are just outright just stupid. They are not academically gifted.
Yes.
Is what the problem is. One of the girls, Yotsuba, is a bit of an airhead. You know, she's easily tricked. One of my favorite jokes in this story is one of the other girls, Miku. One of her things is that she is very good at mimicking the other her sisters. So like she'll change her hair and change her voice and act a little differently, and she passes like a perfect replica of them. And so the first time she does this is to get Futaro to leave her alone by acting like Yotsuba instead. And then, because Futaro's trying to chase her around in order to get her just to trust him to tutor her and stuff. And so she's like, oh, yeah, Miku went that way. And he keeps running, and he runs into the actual Yotsuba, who's like, wait a minute, what? Yotsuba, do you have a doppelganger or something? And Yotsuba's like, well, I don't think so. And then they look over, and Miku is right there. She's still disguised as Yotsuba, and Yotsuba's like, oh my god, it is my doppelganger. I'm going to die soon. Like, it's her own sister.
Yeah.
Like, and she falls for it. That's the kind of a person that she is. But they're not stupid. They're just not very good at studying. Like,
I'm trying to even remember if they ever really dig into why they are particularly like they specifically call attention to the fact that all of the girls are kind of good at their own subjects. But why most of them are particularly good at that subject never felt like it was really clear to me. Like, it was supposed to be kind of this key to, like, you know, individually you all might be kind of bad at studying, but combined together, you're a genius. You're wonderful. You're brilliant. That kind of thing. And, you know, honestly, I don't want to compare it too much to We Never Learn, because they are different series, even though they have, you know, very similar premises. and I guess it's one of those things that you're like, I will simply have to accept that the studying part of this is just a means to an end. It is a way to get this male lead into the house of these 5 girls and get them involved in their life, because it truly never feels like it's anything but like a plot thing. Oh, this new exam's coming up. If he doesn't get all the girls to get this high enough of a score, then he'll be fired. And that'll be bad because his family doesn't have a lot of money. But it doesn't even get deeper than that. It's not like with Uego where it's like, look, you're so poor, you're never going to get into another college unless you get this recommendation from the vice principal, and the principal's recommendation will only come if you get these girls to get a certain score threshold. There's not even anything like that. They'll just lose the money, and presumably his family will be worse off for it,
Yeah, the way you phrase it as a means to an end, I think is the most appropriate. The tutoring and studying is simply part of the setting. It's not really intrinsic to what the plot is about. It's just a matter of it's only important directly when there is a deadline that they have to get to. So at certain points, there's like, okay, there's an exam coming up, and they spend a few chapters focusing on the fact that there's an exam coming up. Almost all the rest of it is just a matter of like building up the personal relationships between Futaro and the girls, and it becomes like the first 2 girls to fall in love with Futaro fall in love with him very early on in the series, and it's kind of a gradual thing for some of the girls after that. But once the girls start falling in love with him, then it becomes increasingly more and more and more about it's just the romantic plot. And I mean, I'm not going to say like, oh, well, that makes it worse or anything. It does feel like the tutoring element is lacking because there's so much emphasis put on that. But I mean, that first chapter ends by saying like, hey, in 5 years, Futaro is going to marry one of these sisters. It's letting you know off the bat, this is what the story is.
Yeah.
Is the story of Futaro falling in love with one of these girls and them getting together. You know what the conclusion is going to be. It's just a matter of figuring out who it's with and coming to see how it happens. So if you're not into the romantic part of it, there's not really a whole lot else in the series really to look into. It is a straight up, just it's a dramatic story with a few, lighthearted things that happen about this one guy bonding with these girls, and then a romance happens, and that is it. If you're into one of those, like, okay, I like to figure out, who is my favorite girl and rooting for them, then it will suit you more than fine. You might not know that he winds up with, but that's the way that a lot of these kind of series tend to go. Yeah. And there is no, alternate routes where he ends up with all 5 of the different girls. It's just, no. That was one, and that was it.
No, but the other 4 do go on his honeymoon with him, which is a little bit curious.
Yeah. For those of you who are like 6th route harem ending is like, well, I mean, it's not telling you no.
Yeah, I think I do appreciate elements of the story. I do think there are moments that are good. I think I ended up at first liking Miku a lot just because her character archetype is, the shy introvert girl, and she's literally the first girl to open up. So I was like, cool, that's pretty refreshing. You don't have to have this like shy, shrinking Violet in every scene. She actually like develops a pretty strong personality very quickly, and I enjoyed that. And then one of the girls to fall in love with him right after that is Itsuki. And I thought she actually had some kind of complicated layers to her that I kind of appreciated a little bit.
Do you mean Itsuki or Ichika?
Ichika, sorry. No, Itsuki doesn't have any layers.
I wouldn't have been clued in if you hadn't. I wouldn't have been clued in if you hadn't said layers of personality. Some of the girls aren't developed as well as others, which I find to be the biggest failing of the series. Is that I don't think that as characters, all of them are as interesting to follow, and I'm not as invested in some of their stories as others. I'm with you on Miku, and honestly, I think that like the order that the girls fall in love with him is probably the order of most to least interesting for me. So the series, I guess, in that way, gets worse as it goes on.
Oh man,
Yeah.
it is, and I think that's really kind of where my big issue with the series is that I can absolutely understand if it's something where like I like the girls, I like their personalities. I think the writing of the story and the narrative way it ties them all together is the place where I find issues. And honestly, I think the biggest reason for why there are so many is because this is a harem that drops all 5 girls on you from the start. So every time they kind of start to do one of their bigger stories, they have to find something for all the girls to do as opposed to like kind of building them up. And there's just not that many. Like the ski trip is one. And I was like, I think as a way to kind of tease him with all the girls, he has 4 different situations of getting stranded one-on-one with one of the girls. And only one of them's in an even slightly different context than the rest. The other 3 are just like, this girl is alone with him and has to work out some feelings, basically. And that's pretty much it. And then Yatsuba happens to be there. And you know what? She was final girl. So you know what, guys? Just don't have issues. That's the secret to success.
Spoilers. Yeah, it's and I think that the way that since we've already broached this subject, so might as well talk about it. I think that one of the reasons that Yotsuba is one of the less interesting girls for me is specifically because she is the one that Futaro winds up with. And it's not necessarily because he falls in love with her, it's because of how the one he falls in love with is intrinsically tied into the fact that he has met one of the quintuplets in the past. It was just something that he didn't really fully remember. See, because every time you do a romance series in a shonen, you've got to have a past where their fate's already been decided, and so they just have to remember that they made a promise as children, and so so Futaro.
It's that moment. There was literally a moment where I was just like, all right, We Never Learned meets Nisekoi, where like he opens up a locket with a picture of one of the girls. He's like, I hope I get to meet you again one day. Like, what the fuck is this?
That happened in like chapter 10 or something like that. I was like, oh god, again with this and the picture. Oh.
And who could it be? All the girls look the same, which by the way, only works in the manga, because I looked up pictures of like the colored art and I was like, all of them have different hair colors. Like they're not identical anymore. I was like, how the fuck does the Miku gimmick work?
The idea.
Good.
I guess the idea is that they all are just redheads, but in order to help distinguish them for marketing purposes, they have different shades of red hair. But no, you're right. Like the fact that they're quintuples and one of them has hot pink hair and another has orange hair. It's like, I can tell you apart.
I do enjoy. There's like a plot where, because Yatsuba's whole thing is like she gives too much of herself. She really can't say no to somebody in need. So they have to like, she gets invited to work with like the track club, and the track club's just pushing her too hard, and she's not doing enough of her own stuff. So they come up with a plan to have Itsuki take her place and like decline the club for her. And the club president's like, you're not fucking Yatsuba. And they're like, how did you figure? They had to act like she's this sharp genius for being like, well, your hair's a lot longer. Also, it's a different color. Like.
But then, like, another girl shows up and she's full that time.
Oh, boy.
So, it's kind of something you just have to, like, they can be told apart when the story says they can be, and otherwise they can't be told apart. That's basically what it boils down to. So Yotsuba, it turns out, and we don't know it's Yotsuba as we're getting revealed this information. It turns out, though, that when all the girls were kids and they all looked like completely identical, I guess, she ran into Futaro, who had basically deliberately abandoned a class trip that he was on because he was actually the troublemaker in school. He was the bad boy. He was the prankster. and he realized that he was getting in the way of like some of his classmates hooking up in a sixth grader sense. But so he was like, I'm just the spare, I'm not needed here, which is the most 12-year-old thing to think. So he left, and while he was on his own, he ended up running into Yotsuba, who was calling herself Reina, which is the girl's mother's name, and she's dead. And so they bonded, and he was inspired by her to change his ways and become someone that a girl like her would be able to rely on. And that's why he became this very studious, serious-minded person. And as a result of being the first girl to actually meet him, she wins because he's never forgotten that girl. He's always been in love with her, even though he wasn't actually in love with her, but he was actually in love with her. I don't know. He tells himself different things a few different times. And so that's the girl that he winds up with. And in a sense, defies and at once holds up the tradition of the first girl winning that tends to go with a lot of shonen romances, because Itsuki was the first girl he encountered in the present timeline, but she was the first girl that he ran into then. And yeah, well, I guess they did the same thing with Iruka and We Never Learned, didn't they? Well, no, because in the Kirisu timeline, he actually encountered her first.
Yes.
Damn it.
Remember, all those timelines are canon and not canon at the same time, Nick.
That's right. Schrodinger's timelines. So
yeah, I guess to just wrap this up, I will say that I enjoy aspects of Quintessential Quintuplets. And I definitely appreciate that I know what it is now, because there's a lot more references in the general world around me that I'm going to get. I got confused by everyone called a new unit in Archetypes Nino all the time. And then I read this manga. I was like, oh yeah, she's absolutely just Nino with the fucking lance. So, I enjoy aspects of that. But I will say, I did not love it. If you ask me what's better between this and We Never Learn, despite what is happening currently in the one series, I'll still probably see We Never Learn. But I also do gotta admire somebody with the fucking balls to end the story with the one girl you said you wanted to end it with.
Yeah, really. I liked getting to know some of the characters. I thought that Nino was probably the most, just not necessarily interesting, but it was nice whenever she showed up because stuff would happen then. She would actually generate conflict.
She's a shit stirrer, but not like Asumi where it's joking. She's just kind of mean and kind of starts problems where she goes.
Ichika, I'm kind of up and down on. She has the whole big sister thing with the sense of responsibility, but I don't really like the way that she was trying to be a big sister while also being like, oh, I've got the hots for that guy. She tried to do both with him, which was kind of I'm playing into my type, my fetish. I liked Miku because, she was shy and she was trying to open up and she was trying to be bold a lot of the time, and you could see her kind of growing. Yotsuba and Itsuki were there. Especially Itsuki. She was there.
Holy shit. Man, she's the first girl you meet in the story, so a lot of it kind of feels like it tries to center around her. And for the longest time, I was like, I don't get it. Is she just did I miss a level of her personality somewhere, or is she just tsundere and that's it? Because that's really all her personality ever develops to.
Chris, because she wants to be a teacher, though, Chris, because her mom was a teacher.
Hey, and that's very sweet. That's nice. I do like some of those developments at the end. But yeah, holy shit, man. Utsuki is really just a character who is present in that story.
She's there for whenever it's kind of a funny thing because a lot of times Futaro comes across one of the girls in one of their vulnerable moments, and a lot of times when that happens, there's another girl with him, and it seems like the majority of the time Itsuki's the girl who is just there too, because she's the most neutral personalitied girl, so she doesn't steal the spotlight away from the one who's having their big dramatic moments.
Is that a param archetype, the present also character type?
Yes, it's Bob was there too.
Yeah.
So I came away from this. I knew relatively early on, okay, this isn't really doing it for me. I didn't really feel like, oh, I've got to find out what happens next. I've got to find out what happens next. Like, I wanted to early on avoid spoiling the series for myself, but eventually I realized like I don't really care enough because I just have a funny feeling that the one girl that I'm kind of interested in her being happy because she loves the guy, Miku, I feel like she's not gonna be the girl, so I don't really care anymore after that. And then yeah, it turned out to be Yotsuba, and I was like, all right, man, if that makes you happy. Yotsuba does have an interesting thing where she doesn't feel like she deserves anything for herself. But that was also kind of Miku's thing early on. Like, she didn't think anything of herself because she felt that all of her sisters could do everything she was capable of and she was useless otherwise. So it's weird. Like, all the girls have something tied into their relationship as quintuplets. Ichiko wants to look after everyone by being the bigger sister, to be the breadwinner and help everyone out. Nino is like the guardian of everyone. She's the most distrusting towards Futaro. She doesn't want him messing anything up. But also she's got this deep insecurity that the girls are changing as they get older and they're all drifting apart. And she doesn't want that to happen. She's fearful of what's going to happen to her. And, you know, those are interesting stories to tell, but it does lose the impact when you see some of them like kind of take the story that was from one character because it's like, well, I didn't come up with another one for them. So, but I thought it was an all right series, but it is not really a genre that really appeals to me. And I feel as though if I were into the story more, this type of series more, it probably wouldn't be my favorite example of it. But it's a harmless enough story. If you're really into it, hey, good news for you. The second season of the anime adaptation is coming out next month. So there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Nick, let's get talking about those recap series.
Yes, yes, your lordship. We're going to start things off with My Hero Academia, number 294, Final Performance. So we get the reiteration that, oh, hey, that sedative that we fed to Gigantomachia is taking effect now. And we get this very, like, kind of like, oh, right, all that happened to all those people sort of page where we're reminded, like, hey, yeah, Ryukyu got fucked up and no one else. But Hawks has, got his wings burned off and Gran Torino's on life support. Mirko's still messed up. Aizawa's still messed up. What's up?
I'm sorry. I forgot what this chapter was about. Just someone posted in the chat and I was like, oh yeah. We'll get to it.
That's what happened. So, oh, and also the number, what was he, 6?
Number 6. Nick, put some respect on his name. He was the number 6 hero, Crust.
Crust is dead, and he's still getting thumbs up from the afterlife.
Who's like the Marvel equivalent of Crust? A character who would be like, my dramatic sacrifice. Everyone's like, goodbye, old 6th Ghost Rider or wherever you are.
There's only 6 members of the Avengers. Yeah, but
Oh no, Beta Ray Bill. I'll always remember you.
So anyway, Best Genius makes a thread pun because if a single thread frayed came loose, all would have been lost. But yeah, it's nice to have this acknowledgement of like, hey, this has been a long fight that we've been going through in this manga, but there was a purpose behind it, which is this otherwise unstoppable thing has been stopped now because of everyone's efforts. Hooray! And now it's like, hey, all right, let's go and finish off the bad guys. It seems like they're going to win in this moment. They're still high end. They're trying to fight them, everyone's kind of realizing that they're not strong enough to actually deal with the Hayanomu. They just have to kind of take the pressure off of Best Genius for him to actually finish everything off. And then all of a sudden, Mr. Compress! Hey, he's been here this whole time. I didn't know if you really knew that. We've checked in on him a few times, like when he was concerned about Togo when she ran off by herself. But otherwise, he's been there too. But he's here now, and this chapter is about him. So, Compress realizes at this moment that he can't touch anything in order to activate his quirk. He can't even touch the cables that are binding his arms to his sides. And the way he puts it is, in such dire straits, all I can do is tickle my own behind.
Mm-hmm.
That's one way of putting it. But
what would be another way of putting it, Nick?
I don't know.
Fondle my own fanny.
Oh, okay.
Or
touch my own tuchus.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I'm gonna thumb my fart box. It doesn't have the alliteration, but it's very evocative.
So he has this moment where he realizes that Shigaraki's on his outs, and he's like, okay, you've drawn us all together, and you've told us to cause chaos, but what are we supposed to do right now when even you can't do anything? And he's like, we haven't done anything still. We've said we're going to do all this stuff, and we're going to be finished up before we can even start. Dabi and Toga and I have yet to achieve our dreams. And then Genist is like, I need you guys to go asleep now. So he starts squeezing all of them with his cables in order to choke them out. Spinner's body does not react well to being squeezed. You might kill that boy. So Compress says, as he's being choked, to Spinner, who's like the only one right next to him who's conscious, that I love the League. Tamura is the key. I shall buy you 5 seconds during which to rouse the boss. Every decent performance requires a good assistant. And he touches his own ass and activates his quirk, causing that part of his flesh to shrink away. And by gouging out his flesh like that, now his arm can move in the binds. And so he snaps his arm out and compresses both Spinner and Shigaraki, snatches their marbles in his hand. And he mentally says to, all the heroes fighting him, like, hey, don't think for a moment that you're the only ones who are giving your lives for a cause. Ready for a taste of prime entertainment? And Best Genius is like, you've just inflicted a fatal wound on yourself by ripping out your own ass. And he immediately responds by just taking control of the fabric and compresses clothes to him that way. So Compress reacts by continuing to do what he just did before and just gouging out parts of his body with his compress quirk so that he rips off all of his own clothes and a bunch of flesh along with them so that he can get away. And he thinks to himself, daring escapes and deception are my forte, which means I'm the man who will save our team from doom. Time for backstory! So we learn that Mr. Compress is the grandson of Oji Harima, the peerless thief, a criminal who would target the fattened pockets of sham heroes and preached reformation while returning what he pilfered back to the streets. I believe that this character was brought up in along the list of great villains from the past. I think that was when we first heard the name of Destro listed along with All for One. I think that we heard about this guy before. So anyway, Mr. Compress is his grandson, and he is ripping his body apart in order to get away. Todoroki and Dabi are still fighting with each other, but Dabi says, sorry about this, Shoto. Change of plans. Enji Todoroki isn't completely broken yet. If he passes out now, there's no point in going on with this performance. Sorry, Masterpiece. And Compress says to the spirit of his grandfather, the reformation you could not achieve, I now hand off to my boss. To the Paranormal Liberation Fronts, no, the League of Villains, Shigaraki. Thank you. Now I don't have to remember the Paranormal Liberation Front anymore. League of Villains. He will change the world instead. And he proclaims, I am Harima's great-great-grandson. Got the grandson part wrong. My bad. The Bandit King's blood flows through my veins. What's that you say? You barely noticed me? All part of the act, which is a great twist on, oh yeah, Mr. Caress has been there all along. It's like, all right, if you're going to tell me it was intentional, fine, I'll buy it. But he says it was all part of the act. It's all for that ta-da moment, that the true trick is saved till the end. And as he says this, his mask has been sent flying. He takes the marbles that he has shrunk Spinner and Shigaraki down into, and while his body just has these big gaping holes in it, he casts the marbles down and sets them down, and they're freed from Bestina's vines, or, well, cables. And he says, voila! The curtain rises on the first and final escape artist performance of Mr. So what do you think of this chapter, Chris?
So I guess I gotta compliment sandwich this. I'm very excited that Mr. Compress is gonna do something in the story. The middle part now. God damn, we have enough fucking going on in this fucking arc. Just end it. At the end, it seemed actually kind of cool the way it all came together. But this is a weird double layer sandwich that has more meat at the bottom. God fucking seriously? Like more? I don't want more.
So I'm not sure exactly where this is leading to, if this is going to be extending the fight or if this is going to just be generating an opening for Shigaraki to get away. Because Shigaraki is still unconscious. And it seems like Dabi has agreed that they need to change their plans and he can't just stick around and go on being like, look at how much of a big shit Endeavor is. So I get the impression that they're going to try and run away now. I could be wrong about that, of course.
I don't know, because the whole thing is like, I'm giving you 5 seconds to rouse Shigaraki, and it's like, I guess if you rouse him, who knows who actually physically is the one that wakes up. Maybe All For One is the one who wakes up, and he's like, oh yes, time to retreat and get out of here. But if Shigaraki's the one who wakes up, I'm like, I mean, can he just touch? Yeah, like, can he just immediately start burning people up again? And you have to get, like, it's very much something where I'm like, I definitely appreciate that Mr. Compress has this character moment. I'm kind of bummed he's dead now too, because I really don't have too many characters left in the League of Villains that I actually like now. So again, this kind of fills the idea of like, I guess the League of Villains is supposed to end here unless you're gonna repopulate their ranks with characters that matter. But because, I mean, I don't fucking care. Is Getting Even alive anymore? I don't even remember. Skeptic can fucking die. Who cares? Or get arrested. Redestro was already beaten. He has nothing left to do. So, like, I assume that like, there's not really anything left to do at this point.
I don't really know. I think that this is definitely a cool idea of what Mr. Compress does here by, you know, he has nothing left to do. So he just shrinks away parts of his own body and maims himself in order to get out. It's a very extreme version of dislocating your shoulder in order to escape a straitjacket kind of thing. But also some of the action is a little bit hard to follow. I have to say, in just a few pages of the whole thing. I think that it sticks the landing at the end where he, you know, he's doing the pose and he's coughing up blood, and you can see like where one of his like lungs should be, this hole in his side, and there's just enough light covering up that you can't really see the extent of the damage he's done to himself.
Yes.
But at the same time, I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, but what was he trying to do? So was he just doing this to get Shigaraki and Spinner momentarily out of their binds?
Yeah, I think that's the ultimate goal here, because he says, I'm going to give you 5 seconds. You got to wake up the boss. So presumably the next chapter is Spinner doing whatever he can to wake up Shigaraki. Just be like, I need you up. Because you can see Mirio and the cables are coming after them. So like he didn't get that far.
I'm also wondering what the hell he called Dabi over to do exactly.
I guess to try to delay them for a moment. I don't know.
Like, you can't even see Dabi in the final panel. I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's just kind of not conveyed very well at a few points. I think that the most important parts of the chapter are conveyed well in the sense of like, hey, Mr. Compress is killing himself in order to do this. But in terms of like, while I was reading this, trying to follow like, okay, what is he trying to do? And I could not decide what I thought was happening, and that was frustrating to me. So I like the broad strokes of the chapter, but there are a lot of little elements of it that do take away from it for me. So. Also, he was somebody important's great grandson. Great. All right. We're doing Ian Zero next then?
It's Kaiju number 8, chapter 20. I can do
Ian Zero.
Kaiju number 8, chapter 20.
Okay. So, Hoshina is still squaring off against Kafka, and Kafka goes into a fighting stance now that he's seen how strong Hoshina is, and of course Hoshina has just unleashed 92% combat ability. But when he takes his fighting stance, Kafka remembers that humanoid kaiju that he punched and whose body was torn apart by the force of the blow. So he's like, I mean, I can't just punch him. I'll kill him. So what do I do? And in that moment of hesitation, he gets cut across the chest, and he's shocked by this because Hoshina didn't exactly, run up to him. And so Kafka's like, okay, well, I can't just hold back. I'll die if I do. And he's like, I mean, this guy is like on a completely different level than even what I saw Kikoru do when she unleashed her combat potential. So he starts trying to get away, but as he's running backwards down the alleyway that they're in, Hoshina's pulling some Spider-Man shit and just flipping from wall to wall and pursuing him that way. So agile and so quick that Kafka can barely has enough time to harden his body in order to block his moves. Hoshina slashes his sword, and Kafka thinks he dodged it, and his hand goes flying off because the force of the slash generated an invisible slash. Hoshina now can see his core through the wound to Kafka's chest that the invisible blade created. Kafka's able to regenerate the damage, and he's like, oh, right, I'm not exactly human. Am I guess. But I can tell that that's going to actually require a lot of stamina for me to keep on regenerating, so I can't take too many hits. So he realizes I've got to aim for one hit, and I've got to gamble on this and go for one hit here. He, I guess, allows Hoshina to strike some glancing blows and just kind of stands his ground, I think is what is happening. And he's deflecting the blows as they're coming towards him. So just enough so that they only leave nicks as opposed to causing real damage. And Hoshina realizes this thing's got some really tough fortitude. This thing could be a Dai Kaiju in terms of its level of fortitude. And he also has this uneasy feeling inside of himself. So he's like, all right, I gotta kick this into high gear. So he proclaims he's going to use Sword Slay Technique number 5. And he slashes it with an X with his swords, which launches this invisible slash attack. Kafka manages to dodge to the side, but it takes his leg off. Hoshina comes in for the follow-up blow, and Kafka realizes too late. That was set up for the real strike, as Hoshina uses Mist Slasher and drives his blade through Kafka's arm, through his chest, towards the core he spotted earlier, and he's like, I've got him. And then he sees that this maw has appeared in Kafka's chest. It bites down the blade to prevent it from actually hitting the core. And Kafka had deliberately aimed for this. He knew that Hoshina was going to go straight for his core. He knew exactly where he was going to attack. And so he prepared this defense. He rears back with his fist to punch as Hoshina goes, ah, hell. And Kafka punches the blade out of his hands. And he breaks the sword and knocks Hoshina backward from the force of the impact. And before Hoshina can recover himself, Kafka disappears. He manages to get away. And that's all he can say. When he's asked for a status report over the radio, he says Kaiju No. 8 has escaped. We get a color page on the end of the chapter, which is an interesting touch.
Unless you use Manga Plus. They didn't get that for some reason. And it's a great color page. It's very simple, but I do love the Dawn breaking over this big, giant, crazy conflict. This is still a pretty early start to the series, but it's a very sweet moment of like, okay, phew, he managed to get out of there, because it did feel like for a moment that Kafka was in a pretty rough spot. Kefka, rather.
Yes.
So, this was actually a really cool fight. I actually liked how Hoshino works. I like a lot of the tension there, and I do love the creativity of the final moment where he's like, I knew you'd come there, so I basically made a mouth on my fucking pec so I could catch your blade before you killed me.
Yeah. It's one of those kind of things where it's like you go up against someone much stronger, and you can't just get jobbed out, but you can't just beat the guy either, because then what's the purpose of building up as a strong opponent? So, hey, he showed some ingenuity, he showed some, quick thinking and strength, and he managed to force a stalemate, which is better than you could expect. So, good stuff. All right, so for some reason, Comixology does not have the chapter of Eden 0, but Crunchyroll does.
Yeah, so I made a big deal. I'm going with Crunchyroll, and now there's this.
Yeah, so showed you, I guess.
Yeah, sucks to suck, me.
Chapter 123 of Eden. Chapter 123 of Eden 0 is the light of justice. Justice is, going to fight Shiki. Shiki tried to punch him in the last chapter, and Justice just catches his fist really easily. And he says, the Interstellar Union Army was formed to strike down the evil that runs rampant through the cosmos, be it the Eurasian States Galactica, Ziggy, or lawless space voyagers like you. And he throws Shiki backwards, and Shiki's like, what do you mean lawless? And Justice explains that the Eden 0 is an unregistered ship. Oh, they're pirates. They're breaking the law, Chris. How nefarious of them. That's awful. And Justice says that, and also the former owners were Ziggy and Elsie. So this will require further investigation. Shiki says, don't even think about it. We only let friends on our ship. See, in order to make it onto the Eden 0, Chris, you've got to answer a friendship quiz. Things like, are you Shiki's friend? Yes / no.
All security measures unlocked.
So Justice basically proclaims he's going to kill Shiki here because he's an unlawful person. And Shiki's like, your government's really aggressive. Justice says, are you trying to say we're oppressive? Which, I don't know, sounds like projection to me. And he says, normally there are protocols that must be followed. We cannot cause harm to civilians. However, those of us in the Eurasian Space Interstellar are given certain privileges. We have the right in any situation to eradicate any target we determine to be evil. So he's like, since you're associated with the Demon King, with Elsie, you might become evil someday. So I can't allow you to live. And he transforms. And he looks exactly like Gajeel from Fairy Tail now.
So I pulled up a copy of this chapter so I could follow along with it. And the moment I got to this page, I just sighed because we kind of joke like, oh, he's Space Gajeel. But then they went and just made him Space Gajeel. Or Space Siegfried, or whatever the fuck his name has been in the last 3 goddamn Hero series. This is not that cool of a character design. You can let it go.
But he's got a scar, Chris. So he says, I will execute you right in the name of justice. And then Tosin shows up next to him. And
God, I wish.
So they fight. They fight. Justice knocks Shiki around a bunch. They fight DBZ fighting stuff, super speed fighting. Shiki falls to the ground, and then Justice is like, "Did Elsie hide her abilities from her friends too? My ether gear gives me the same power as hers. Star Drain. We absorb a planet's ether and make it our own." I'm
gonna make a call here. So he and Elsie have the same power. They drain power, and it does that. None of his outfits will remove clothing, but almost all of Elsie's are going to. Yeah, I'm going to call that now. That at some point they're going to do like a twin star drain at some point, because we know that they're going to be fucking allies. That's almost inevitable at this point. So I'm just waiting for that moment that they both drain the exact same mana from the planet, and for some reason hers is like a tube top.
Somehow, like, her Star Drain twists her entire body around so that her legs are facing the opposite way, so you can see her boobs and butt at the same time. Yeah. And Justice just gets, like, a parka and a suit of armor over the parka.
Oh, yeah, he's gonna get, like, a cool suit of armor and, like, fucking some cool boots and shit like that, and hers will be, like, a fucking cat maid outfit or some shit. And you're like, all right.
Her Star Drain puts her in bondage for some reason. It just ties her up.
I'm like, wait a minute. That's supposed to be their weakness.
Every time she goes into it, it immediately kicks her back out.
You only get it for a scene, but every time she goes into it, it's a different position,
that's the key. Hero, you genius. So for some reason at this point, we cut over to Hermit and Weiss and the Doctor. I only say for some reason because we cut back to Shiki and Justice later in this chapter, so it's a very bizarre, like, little break to the action. The Doctor guy is going to start torturing Hermit, but Weiss stands up on behalf of his friend and is like, "Hey, get away from her, you creep." And then he's kind of like looks closer at Weiss and he's like, "You look kind of familiar." And then he remembers, "Oh, right, Hermit called you Weiss." And he starts freaking out because, like, wait a minute, you're Weiss Steiner, the robotics genius? Well, you're too young, though. Maybe you could be a descendant of his. No, he was a lifelong bachelor. I mean, he seemed to be hanging around with a young woman when we last saw old Weiss. So, I don't know, man. Maybe he never settled down, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have offspring. But anyway, so then he realizes, oh wait, right. His planet was drained by a chronophage. So he switches targets from Hermit over to Weiss and is going to, I guess, begin doing, hopefully not sexual. Well, it can be sexual. Why not? There's never been a hunkai. Experiments on Weiss instead of Hermit. Then we cut back over to Shiki and Justice. Justice is like, I've got a spear now. This will pierce through evil. And he's going to kill Shiki with it. But then Elsie shows up. Hooray! And Elsie stops the spear with her own spear. And Shiki's like, and Elsie's like, don't worry about her. But she promises that her crew will get Homura back, and then she says to Justice, "How dare you hurt Shiki like this? You'll pay, Justice." So she's very serious, Chris. So I know that there's the whole what I call him? Did I call him? What's his name? Gerard? Is that his name?
Gerard, yeah. Jaleel, I think, or Gerard.
Gajeel is
Gajeel.
Yeah,
Gajeel was the metal guy. Gerard.
Or Siegfried, right? So, other than the resemblance to him, I do find that even though this has nothing to do with the plot of what this arc was about up to this point, I'm kind of where you were last week now, where, yeah, this is a much more interesting story because this, agent of justice who is clearly this blood Templar guy going way too far in rooting out what he perceives to be evil. I think that's a much more interesting story than just, it turned the robots evil. And that's so.
Yeah, I would like this significantly more if we weren't just repeating the designs from these characters in the last fucking manga. Like, That's the only part. It's so self-indulgent to be like, my fans are gonna love. I mean, these two, they're like the modern day romance of our time. So, what would be better than to have their love not only transcend series, but almost like a reality in a way that they're in this series as well. It's just like, fuck off. These designs are not that good. Like, even if their characters are different, which they're not so far, just fucking don't just come up with something. You come up with like a fucking 1,000 new every villain group you have has like 16 shitty character designs in it. Just take one of them and put them here.
Do you think that, because they spent a lot of time on Gerard and Urza's relationship in Fairy Tail. It was a thing that was like the entire point of his existence was to have that floating over them, where they couldn't be together for certain reasons, and then for certain other reasons that were related to the first reasons, but were slightly situationally different this time. And that was just kind of a thing that kept them apart for the whole series, and you were supposed to want them to get together. Mm-hmm. All said, do you think anyone's favorite relationship, romantic speaking wise, from Fairy Tail is the two of them?
Yes.
Anyone.
I guarantee there are people who absolutely do. Yeah. Yes, I guarantee it. I guarantee there are some people who did find that relationship actually good. They, when I was 6 or when I was 12, I also enjoyed things that weren't actually that good. I don't mean to be shitty. I hate these character designs. That this is like the third time this character design is being reused in a fucking hero manga.
Anyway, let's move on beyond that, Chris.
Let's go to Chainsaw Man. Maybe the last time ever, but
it's the last chapter of Chainsaw Man. So last time, Denji proclaimed he was gonna eat Makima one meal at a time, and we get a 2-page spread of him eating her. But fortunately, the remains look just like normal food, basically. Otherwise, that'd be kind of really, really fucked up. Chapter 97, I Love Chainsaw. Denji's eating stuff. Everything is like labeled what it is, except for one plate of what I swore for a while was just Makima's hair, and I'm not 100% convinced it's not.
Yeah, I'm not 100% certain what that's supposed to be. What was Makima's hair color?
I think it was red.
Maybe that's like her hair blended up into pasta? I don't know what the fuck that is. Yeah, it really does. That'd be great. It's like, oh, I wish I hadn't saved that pile of her hair until the end of the meal. He just has to eat a pile of her hair like, by the handful. He's like, oh, I shouldn't have saved this till last.
Denji, do you want to like puree that and like make it into a sauce or something? Like, no, we're fine.
No, I already started.
It's stuck in my teeth. So much of it stuck in my teeth. Hang on.
Like a cat.
So we cut forward to where Denji goes out to see Kishibe, and he's walking all of Makima's dogs. And he's got Meowie sitting on his head, and that's very sweet to me. It's like Meowie's just like, no, I'm not gonna walk. Carry me, human. So he sits down on a park bench with Kishibe, and a random woman that I thought for a second might be, oh gosh, I've forgotten her name briefly. The girl who lived.
Kobeni?
Yes. For a brief moment, I thought that it was her, but I guess it's just some random passerby is just being like, ooh, dogs, because they're going.
No, it's a little girl, I think, right? Isn't that?
She does get introduced later, but I don't think she gets pointed. Well, I guess she's got the right hair for it. It probably is her, yeah. Yeah, so anyway. He reports to Kishibe that I ate it all. And she didn't revive from my stomach or from the crapper either.
I'm glad that they got to that joke before we did, because I would have also been like, what if he shits her out and she forms her and then she's a poop monkey? They're like, no, we got it. We're going to be classier than you would as well and not actually get into it.
You can't out lowbrow me.
Yeah, they're like, fucking nerd. What do you think you could do? Walk into my territory? This is my domain. This is my yard.
Kishibe is kind of curious about something, though, which is, I don't know really how you actually killed Makima, because attacks don't work on her. And Denji actually has a theory about that, which is, I didn't want to actually hurt Ms. Makima. I honestly feel that way. I ate her to become one with her, and that's not an attack. It's love. So Kishibe says, well, it either worked completely by chance due to the specific terms of the contract or just a matter of perception, but I'm more interested in something else. How did you get the drop on Makima when you were fighting her? How did she not notice you? And Denji looks sadder when he gives this explanation, which is, I had the hunch based on the conversations we'd had, the intel on enemies and all that. The thing about Ms. Makima is she perceives us via scent. She doesn't actually remember individual faces. She only remembers the sense of people she has interest in. So I made a gamble. I bet that the whole time, Ms. Makima had only been looking at Chainsaw Man, not me. She never saw me even once from the start. And Chris, we have a great community, and they're active on our Discord server. And when this chapter came out, some people were helpfully providing little bits of evidence that fueled this, had set this moment up from like chapter 3 or something like that, when Makima talked about smelling 2 different scents inside of Denji's body and all sorts of other things, like the conversations she had with him in the movie theater and stuff like that. So it's all coming full circle, the story of Makima here.
Yep.
All the kids who had come over to play with the dogs run off in the park, except for one, who was still playing with one of the dogs, and Denji's like, we're having a top secret conversation, leave. And she bites him on the finger. And he realizes, wait a minute, I know this bite. Ms. Makima. And yeah, she's got Makima's eyes too. So maybe you don't see everyone by faces either there, Denji.
Well, it's again, someone in our Discord pointed out that like early on in the series, Makima did bite Denji's finger, and he's like, I'll remember how that bite feels forever, or something like that.
And so Kishibe reports, this kid was discovered in China. I nicked her. I appreciate that he just freely admits, like, yeah, I basically kidnapped her. But
well,
he says,
can you really kidnap her when she doesn't have anywhere she's actually from? Like, I don't presume that when devils are reincarnated, they come with a family. I assume she just materialized out of the ether somewhere.
I guess you make a good point. But Kishibe says, this isn't Makima anymore. She's the control devil. Makima is dead. The new control devil shouldn't have her memories or anything else. But if we let the government raise her, then she'll turn out like Makima again. And then she just says, I don't want to eat any more meat. It's like, that's your... She nearly took over the world. She killed your best friends. So Kishibe says, so I'm entrusting her to you. I'm going to be busy. So I figure that leaving her in your care is the best course of action. And Denji doesn't look very sure about this, but as he looks at the new girl, and she points at him and says, doggy, which that's kind of disturbing that she still makes that connection that Makima did. Denji's like, no, there's no way. But then the girl gets on one of the dogs and kind of just like paddles it while riding around on it. So Denji is like, what's your name, little girl? Her name is Nayuta. And he says, is there anything you want to eat besides meat? And she says, I want sliced bread. And Denji's like, you're a pretty inexpensive devil to keep, aren't you? And she gives him a victory sign.
She gives him,
damn right, I'm cheap.
She gives him specifically the Denji victory sign too.
So he gives her a piggyback ride back to his apartment, and they go to bed. He sleeps next to her while they're surrounded by all the dogs. And in his dreams, Pochita appears before Denji again. And he flashes back to when they held each other when he was a little kid, and when he came across Pochita in the alley. And Pochita says, Denji, my dream was to have someone hug me. It sounds easy, right? But I'm too strong, so it was actually really hard. But you made my dream come true. Denji, I want you to grant the Control Devil's dream too. The Control Devil always wanted to form equal relationships with others, but she could only form relationships through the power of fear. She's always longed for something like a family. That's the kind of world she wanted to create, even if she went about the way. So you create that world for her, okay? And Denji starts to ask, well, how do I do it? And Pochita just smiles and says, give her lots of hugs. And in their sleep, Denji is hugging the girl protectively now while they're still surrounded by the dogs. And then we get a bit of a flash forward. There is a giant devil attacking the city. Who can save us? Well, Denji is on the scene. He's in a high school uniform. And he's preparing to face down the devil while narration tells us, do you think the Chainsaw Man is human? Killing devils is supposedly his hobby. They say he only saves girls. Have you heard? Rumor has it, Chainsaw Man is a high schooler now. And then we get a text box that says, end of part 1, public safety arc.
And then at the end. So
is it the end of the series or is it the end of part 1? Well, this seems to suggest that, we know that this is the final chapter of Chainsaw Man in Weekly Shonen Jump. Mm-hmm. But it seems as though there is going to be another part of the story in another magazine.
It's going to Jump Plus. It's going to Jump Plus, which does have a little bit looser guidelines to it. So maybe you could just draw some straight up titties at points if Chainsaw Man really wants to.
Just get that one, but in full, explicit detail.
I was gonna say it's gonna be chapter 89 or whatever the fuck that was. So it's still kind of unclear exactly what the future of Chainsaw Man is. I don't think we have an idea when it starts. I don't know if we have any confirmation if Viz will still be publishing it. I assume Manga Plus will, because I thought that was sort of like a working relationship with Jump Plus, but it might just be that too many fucking internet, like too many advanced companies now just put plus at the end of their company name, and I assume a connection there. So, maybe there's that. Fuck, was Google Plus a thing? Was that their shitty social network?
It was, yes.
Ugh. Anyway,
and they made everyone register for it for various different programs, and everyone was like, "No, I don't want to use this." So eventually, they gave up.
Yeah. Anyway, so to what I'll say basically is, I like this chapter a lot. I really thought this was a nice way to close out the story. It's supremely kind of odd, but very right that the story ends with out of nowhere. Denji is now the protector of this basically little girl who also happens to be the reincarnation of a very powerful devil. So it's okay, there's a lot of things there that, are kind of exciting prospects to follow. I also do enjoy the detail that Meowie is in the family as well, and really seem to enjoy Kishibe, who fucking bolted like a...
I think that it wasn't he was trying to dump the girl on Denji. He was just like, I can't be around this cat anymore. Because there are various points when he's just kind of picking Meowie off of himself and holding him at arm's length and stuff like that. So, yeah, lots of little details in the action that I didn't really go over because of the importance of the dialogue. But
yeah, so if the next series follows high schooler Denji and the world that we're then following from there, that could be a very exciting series. This sort of Wolverine or Logan, I guess was the name of the movie. Hey, older adult lead taking care of younger little girl. They have adventures, wackiness ensues. Probably gets dramatic and sad at points, but I absolutely would be interested in following that. But I don't know necessarily. Like, again, we don't currently know what Chainsaw Man Part 2 is going to be yet. I know there's a big feature planned for it at Jump Fiesta. Probably show off some of the anime. But we don't know anything about this next part yet.
It's just like, I'm not sure how much I can stress how good of a chapter this is, because it left me feeling good in two very different ways, which is, this is a very good finish. Like, it makes you feel like there's a lot of closure to this, and it's kind of sweet that things kind of turned out this way between what is left of Makima and Denji. And also the note that Pochita leaves him on of like, hey, you can make things turn out well for this girl, that, you know, Makima was not able to have. But also this stuff that they have left us with in terms of, hey, Denji's adventures continue, has got me really excited to see more of Chainsaw Man.
Yeah.
So it's a very good final note, and also a very good and we'll see you next time kind of notes. So great finish to this and I will definitely read whatever Chainsaw Man version comes out when it next appears. So.
Vroom vroom, everybody, vroom vroom.
Yeah. Let's move over to Magu-chan, God of Destruction, The North Wind and Sun, Part 1. That's right. It's not a one-off chapter. So Magu is trying to wake up Ruru. She is reluctant to wake up, so he threatens to blow up her blanket, which gets her to actually wake up. But then she sees a message that has come from her mother, which is her mother is going to be able to actually visit for Christmas. So she goes to school that day. She's telling the news to Ren, and he's happy for her. And while she's talking about her mom, Magu is like, "What is this mom you speak of?" Because he's such a weird like that. So he points out when he learns that, oh, you mean mother, do lowly humans not form groups based on blood relations? Basically pointing out, why isn't she around if she's your mother? And Rue explains that, well, my dad died when I was little, and my mom used to work multiple jobs, but that was really hard on her, so she actually went overseas to raise money for my school tuition. That's why she works abroad. And she doesn't get to visit very often because it's so expensive to travel over here, and also the COVID. So she's like, oh, I'm really looking forward to being here. I'm glad that you're going to get to meet her, Magu-chan. There is no one in the world that I look up to more than my mom, which I think gives Magu a little bit of pause because she's his number one worshiper, supposedly. So for her to say that might, cause concern to him. They go to the occult research club, and everyone's talking about exchanging gifts and stuff like that. Yuika is saying like, "Hey, we should do a gift exchange. Do you want to come to that? Do you want to do a Christmas party, Ruru?" And she's like, "Well, I've got plans with family." Maga wants to know what Christmas is because he didn't know what Halloween is, so of course he doesn't know what Christmas is. When he hears that it's basically a Western version of a winter festival, he's like, "A festival?" And then it's explained, oh yeah, it has roots as like a Christian holiday. And then he's like, "A pagan holiday?" So Magu says, keep the Christ out of Christmas. He doesn't want any of that shit.
I do like a pagan holiday. Like, I think all religions are pagan to you, right?
So of course he's got a very different idea of who Santa Claus is and stuff like that. And so in order to not be outmatched by Santa Claus, he's like, "I can gift you your heart's desire as well." So Yuika's like, "Oh, then I want a big bag of candy." And Magu is like, "Very well, I grant you these seeds of darkness." And he's just vomits out these weird things and invites Yuika to eat them. Okay. And then, oh god, I can't remember the glasses girl's name, but she's like, "Can I have a bit of your flesh?" And Magu's like, "Sure." And it turns into a morphollaxis, so she's really happy about that. Ruru, during the gift exchange, realizes she's got to get a present for her mom. So she's like, well, okay, I can't exactly like buy anything, but hey, if she's been abroad this whole time, she's probably not used to how cold it is here. I'll go knit her a scarf and I'll decorate the house and I'm going to have all this great stuff. I'm going to have everything perfect for my mom to visit. You know where this is going. Yuika and Komiyama are like, I'm not sure exactly what Ruru's getting so worked up about, and Ren kind of drops like, well, yeah, I mean, her family coming over is very special to her because, you know, she's all alone and stuff, and they didn't know about this, presumably because Ruru didn't want them to, you know, worry about her living on her own like that. Ruru goes home. She's knitting. She's having a hard time because she presumably doesn't have a lot of experience knitting. But she's like, okay, I've got 5 days before Mom gets here. I've got to finish this. I've got to put up the decorations and everything. Magu wants to help out. And he's like, you need to festoon the living quarters, then leave it to me. And he vomits out a goat skull. Not sure exactly why. He says like, oh, it'll be like a chaos skull. And he's like, no, don't do that. But, you know, time passes. Ruru's like heading
People
home from
don't
the
use
club.
the word festoon enough. I feel like that word needs to be used far more frequently.
We get a montage of Ruru going home from the club meetings early each day so that she can go and work on the scarf more. And she's just running out of time as the day is approaching. The doorbell rings on the final day before her mom is due to arrive. Izuma is there. And Ruru's like, what are you doing here? And Izuma has a tree over one shoulder. And he's like, yeah, I heard you were going to use this tree for training, so I cut it down for you. So, turns out this is the work of Uneris. And she's like, yeah, that's right. It's me, old Saint Uneris. You can't have Christmas without a tree. And Ruru's like, okay, thank you. But she doesn't have time to decorate the tree. But fortunately, Rin is there, along with Ren and Naputaku. And Rin is, I guess, recommending that they use Naputaku as the star on top of the tree because she refers to him as, here, it's a starfish. So,
yeah.
I don't know. She's got something in her mouth. Maybe she's baked right now. I don't know how her mind is.
She's fucking gone at this point. She's like, I found this starfish in my house for your Christmas tree. Like, Ren's sister, that's the Puntakun. He lives with you. Yeah, it talks and shit. Crazy. You guys got a couch I can like lay down on? I'm just gonna use the floor. It just like falls on the ground.
Hey, can I have like some Doritos and peanut butter, not necessarily separate from each other, like in my mouth? Just like, you can just like pour them on my chest. It'll be cool.
I had a dream once about peanut butter Doritos. Could you get me them from your dream?
You mean like you want some peanut butter and Doritos? No, I mean peanut butter flavored Doritos. Well, those aren't a thing. I mean, I had a dream about them, so yeah, they are.
You need to get them from my dream. Take this starfish with you.
He'll get them. So they're here to help out. Ren has a cake that they made, and I do love Naputaku's only actual contribution to this chapter, which is going, I made the cake! I made it! No, you whipped the cream. You did not make the cake. That's all he gets to say. The other girls show up.
Naputaku like, is a lot more of an entertaining character if you firmly believe he innocently does believe he made the cake. Like, despite the fact he only made the cream, which is a very small part of making the cake, but he's like, I helped make this cake! That is so much cuter and adorable and fun than if he's like, I made the cream. So, like, in a power way, like, you're just like a toddler. You're just like, I don't know. He thought he made the cake. He just made the cream, but, yeah, let him have it.
Ruru's other friends show up. They're going to help decorate as well because they heard from the morpholactic Magu that they got a gift that they were trying to, that she was, in dire straits. She needed to do all this decorating and stuff. And Magu says from atop Ruru's head, foolish lowly human, you cannot gauge your own ability. As the first among my followers, remember that you may enlist the aid of others. Which is a very evil overlord way of saying, it's okay to ask for help sometimes. So Ruru focuses on her scarf while everyone else is helping with decorations and stuff like that. They have a nice little Christmas get-together, and it's very sweet for all of one panel before Ruru realizes that she fell asleep at some point. She's like, "Oh, I've got to finish the scarf. Oh, I already finished it." And with everyone's help, everything's all Christmassy, and there's dinner and cake in the fridge. I really hope Mom likes it. And then she realizes that something feels off because it's really cold. She goes outside and there's all this snow, and like snow's piling up on the road. Not a whole lot of it, but it's like ankle deep. And she, I guess, while out, no, she goes inside. Okay, I was like, does she hear the TV from outside for some reason? No, she goes inside and hears the news report. There has been a record snowfall due to unusual weather, and all the major highways are closed off. And she gets a message at that moment from her mom. The trains are stopped because of the snow, and she's not sure when they're going to start again. And Ruru says she's not sure she's going to be able to make it.
Oh, Nick, on Christmas.
No, not Christmas. It'll be ruined. The Hallmark movie is sad right now. It's going to be happy when there's 3 minutes left, but it's sad right now.
Look, this is a very simple Christmas story. Like, oh, it's my one chance to see my family, but oh, we might not be able to make it. But you know what, Nick? I'm going to go out on this crazy limb here. I'm going to say, with the help of some of her friends, perhaps the super evil god of destruction she has as her friend, they might be able to find a way to get her mom. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. It is amusing right now because currently I'm in Harrisburg and we're getting like 2 feet of snow right now. So it's me being like, fuck you, I have to go to work tomorrow.
Do you remember when we met for that first MagFest and we were driving around in Pa's car and I looked outside and I was like, guys, snow. And you were all like, I mean, yeah, there's like...
It was like the dirty slow, like, yeah, like there's fun with snow when it first lays, but then like after a bit it gets like plowed and it's just piles of dirty, shitty snow. But that's the only snow you had seen, so you're like, oh, let's make a snowman. Guys, snow angels. Like, I think most of that's just gonna be rubble and broken glass. You're like, come on.
And you're all like, you pleb. Got some actual snow a few MagFests after that. And I was like, oh wow. And then I was like, this all sucks.
You're like, I hate every part of this. And you're like, yes, now you truly understand snow. It's really not special or fun. It's awful.
Oh man. Chris.
All right, Nick.
Passing off the baton to you for this most important and deep of chapters. We Never Learn.
Let's do it. We Never Learn. Chapter 186. A pizza bet equals the Queen of Thin Ice Part 9. So it's Yuega and Kirisu's moving day. I'm not sure why it is. It's only really here to kind of get through another, because it's also their wedding day. And basically they're
bad planning.
Yeah, I assume Kirisu just planned everything, and that's why it's a complete fuck up. Because there's no other reason why they moved into the same day other for her to be like, oh, but I wanted to like move. I wanted to begin our lives together this day. And you're like, I mean, you could have lived together. You could at least had his stuff over at this place or something like that, as opposed to moving. Anyway, the clock's broken, so they had to rush out to the wedding again. This actually doesn't play into anything. It's just a way to get like a joke of Kirisu being like, well, I guess I'm going to have to really speed. And Yuega being like, aren't you already speeding? They get to the wedding place. All their friends are there. And they're all really happy. Yuega's family's there. His little sister's very sad because she's like, my big brother's getting married. Yuega's mom's like, yep, I know that my husband really cared about your future, so I'm sure he's really glad you're marrying my kid. Feels a little weird, I guess, to say that out loud, but, you know, I'm sure it'll work out. Kirisu's parents show up to be like, we've resolved our conflict with you. We could have done this in a chapter, but it was more important that you played a video game in your underwear in that one chapter. So... we've resolved our conflicts. You're like, okay. Yuega just has the line, you know, like, I'll devote myself to forever and always to her happiness. Boom, they do the wedding ceremony. People pointed out in Discord, they're like, look, the other girls are there in the panel where where she goes through there. Yeah, I was like, yeah, I guess silhouettes about them, so I guess so. Really, honestly, the rest of the chapter barely is even about the two of them. It's really more about just the sacrament of marriage in a way, because it's just talking about, like, this is what lifting the bride's veil means, and the walk down the alley, and all these different things. Yuega's dad force goes to the fucking ceremony.
Hang on, Chris. I just flipped the page back and forth, and now it's actually Hayden Christensen has been drawn there instead of Yuika's dad. I don't know why. I know. I mean, like, you think that he would be like old and stuff, but no, he's all young again.
It really is funny if you just imagine that, like, there was an empty seat there for no reason, and his dad just force ghosted in, and for some reason the Ewoks are there doing the Wub Dub song. Anyway.
Or like someone actually is sitting there and they've just been like taken over by some sort of ghost. You are Yuiga's father now.
Famino's just like, yes, I'm proud of this day. I also, it seems like both of them noticed Yuiga's dad force ghosting in and smile because they all have
been drugs now, Chris. So
they're both on the same Ambien. Anyway. I don't know if this is supposed to be the same day or what, because Kirisu basically talks about how refreshed, like how weird it feels to be like, oh, now we're officially a couple as they walk alongside the riverbed. Yuega's like, it'd be nice. We're gonna create a beautiful family together. Kirisu takes that immediately as in like we're gonna have kids. So she's like, how many kids do you want? He's like, what? No, I meant like we're gonna have to like share joint bank accounts and shit like that. But she's like, hey, you know what? I'm a happy person. Yeah, we're probably going to have kids. And that's the way the story ends. Boom. Kirisu route done.
Yeah, they're happy together. That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
So a curious thing, by the way, hang on. I got to go through the most important measurement. Hang on. I got to remind myself. Kirisu's dress does not have shoulder straps. So that's going to be... It's gonna be a 3. Wait, there's a good ass shot. There's a good ass shot at the beginning. 4.
Yeah, right, I was gonna say you do get that. Also, her shoulders. She does have one shoulder strap. It's made of flowers, though. So I don't know. That might be a whole other thing.
Oh, that qualifies or not? I don't know. I'll have to take it up with the board to determine where that falls before we give the final score to that very important demographic. Anyway, so this is kind of like nothing chapter to me. Like, there's nothing wrong with it intrinsically, I don't think. If this had followed a much better story arc, I think we would have been very happy with this, honestly. It's just a very straightforward, it's like, hey, they got married, and you know what? We joke about the fan service and we never learn, but honestly, for a lot of people, this kind of stuff is just porn. Just as you're saying, the sacrament of marriage, all the stuff, everyone lined up and everything. They're in the church together. He lifts the veil and everything like that. You just get to see it just happen, and which you didn't get to see happen in any other story routes. So might as well, have it be something different about this one. But there's kind of like not a whole lot to them as characters, except for the little bit at the beginning of them having to drive really quickly and the bad planning. So it's just kind of like, yep, this chapter happened and they got together. Hooray! The most interesting thing about this to me is the final story arc of the 5 routes is over now.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the chapter, there's a notification that says, next chapter is December 20th.
Yes.
Which is very weird to see below the words, route 5 out of 5 end.
No one at this moment knows what this route is. I've heard a couple theories. I won't throw them out there just because I don't want to, spread rumors, because I don't think anything has currently been really substantiated yet. But there is at least one more chapter for We Never Learn, and I don't I have no idea what it could be, because you can't confirm any of these routes or you ruin the whole point of these routes, which is any of them could be canon. Also, this completely fucks with the volume schedule. Like, I guess the Kirisu volume will just have the the secret extra chapter to it, because like you can't posthumously put it in the other volumes. Like, if it's supposed to be like a general conclusion.
Do we have confirmation that the next chapter is definitely going to be the last one?
The last thing I heard it was, but I mean, I don't think there's 100% confirmation at this point.
Because, I mean, I was looking at stuff, and I didn't see anything saying like, oh, it's going to end next week. And there's nothing at the end of this chapter that says next chapter will be the conclusion or anything like that. So, I don't know. I mean, like, maybe there will be some sort of neutral ending, or God forbid, a harem ending. Like, and that'll be like the final route, and we'll get a full 9-chapter arc out of that. But one way or another, it just kind of feel weird to first end the series and then say that was one of 5 endings, and we're gonna do all the other endings, and then do the 5th ending and say come back for more next week. Like,
keep going.
How many times can one series end? This is if this happens one more time, we're going to be in 7 Deadly Sins territory. It's like, I think it's over. So it's like, oh my god, it's not.
The next chapter, Yuiga gets crushed by a rock at the end, and I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, no one really knows what this is. It is so weird to think about how we're like still just like sitting there, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I guess I kind of want we never learned to go out on any other note than this one. So, you know what? Fucking go. And this is when the monkey paw curls, and like it's the fucking sister route or some shit like that. I'm just like, oh god, no, take it back.
I mean, I am curious if there's going to be like some sort of ending where like Yuiga just doesn't end up with any of the girls. Yeah. Like there's just, that's just not a focus, or like some heretofore even unseen girl is whoever he winds up with, or there's a route where he ends up with a guy who goes, maybe Yuiga was bi this whole time. I don't know. It's just, there are many different things that could happen here as we're continuing this. I'm crossing my fingers primarily against the sister route. That's the one that I'm just like, please don't do that. I don't think that they will, and I think that that's less realistic, but still a bigger concern for me than the other thing I don't want to happen that I'm crossing my fingers against, which is the harem route.
Oh no, there's one other one you need to crush.
That one has a better chance of happening, but it doesn't concern me as much as the first option.
There's one other one you need to focus on, Nick. Pizza bet route. Pizza bet route. Pizza bet route. There's one more chance. It's not done yet.
I'm sorry, I've been so upset about Kirisu this whole time, and Ogata hasn't shown up for the last 2 rounds, so I forgot all about that.
There's still a chance for it.
That'll be it. That'll be the everyone is gay route, where
everyone goes
off with the same sex partner.
That'd be the best. There's happiness for everybody, and I get a pizza.
which is your pairing.
Oh, me and pizza are fucking OTP, man. Oh man, that's the best.
We'll call it like I don't know. What do you like on your pizza, man? I don't know.
What? Oh,
yeah. No. What do you like on your pizza? I'm trying to think of something.
Oh, pepperoni.
Is that right? Okay, so it'll be like route 6 out of 5. The Pepperoni Palace.
A little pep in your step, or some shit like that.
Awful. All right, we're past this conversation. Moving on. I don't want to talk about it.
All right, Nick. Oh shit! Never mind. We can't go on to the next chapter, Nick.
No.
Why
not?
This is the Dr. fucking Chelsea chapter.
It is involved, and Dr. Chelsea is heavily involved in this chapter, but you know what? It was probably her best chapter so far. She was the most bearable, I think. Big 2-page color spread at the beginning of Dr. Stone, where everyone's holding up 2 fingers because Dr. Stone's 2nd season is starting soon. And so Yo and Ukyo and Nikki are all heavily featured because they were in the key art for the 2nd season. Anyway, last chapter, Joel, I believe was his name, the watchmaker, managed to briefly reactivate the petrification device. He is revived immediately with revival fluid. It looks like he didn't even break what he fell to the ground, so that makes cleanup really easy. Joel says that now that he's had this little breakthrough, he is determined to figure out exactly how this thing works. He's going to keep going after this task until he can't work anymore. And he says, no matter how brutal the job, I will scale this proverbial mountain as long as it stands in my way. At that moment, Senku's group is trying to scale a literal mountain. So my favorite part of the chapter, honestly, might be the part where they very briefly establish that when they camp for the night, they hunt some armadillos and cook them. It's just crammed to this one corner of the page.
I'm like, can you do that?
I guess.
Can you eat armadillo? All right, I'll come back to you with what I find.
That's right. All right.
The answer is yes, apparently.
Okay, cool. While they're eating, they also are planning on what they're going to have to do. And so, they go over that. They bring up the problem of like what they're going to do once they reach the Amazon rainforest. That's going to help because the plane won't be able to track them. They'll have the natural barrier of the rainforest and they can't actually land or attack. But the key is to actually reach the barrier to that forest. Chelsea does a weird hand and face before pointing over the mountain. She's like, after we cross the Andes, we're going to run into that dense rainforest and then we'll be home free. And so there's some other stuff that happens. I don't care. They do establish some things about how the world has changed because humans haven't been around for several thousand years, which is an interesting point to bring up, that, human influence on weather patterns has been removed. So there's, more cold seawater and La Nina has been different and stuff like that. So Chelsea just kind of like pulls all this out because of her geography expertise and stuff like that. And then they say the whole planet's connected by science. Anyway, for the whole thing of them actually getting to the mountain, the plan that is brought up, Chelsea mentions, hey, we're going to have to like play musical chairs here. We're going to have to alter the way that people are sitting on the motorcycles. And for the amount of time that this plot point is relevant, they spend a lot of time on it, but not too upset about that. So she asks Luna how much she weighs, and Luna freaks out very briefly because, she's been asked such a personal, blunt question, and she lies about her weight by a bit. She says she pounds, and her followers are like, oh, yes, she's so slim and trim. Wait, not with those proportions. Which I guess that means that they're saying, yeah, but she got that butt, though, so she can't possibly be that.
She does. It's honestly very distressing to me that she has those proportions and she's still wearing that fucking dress that looks like it barely fits on her. I'm like, come on, you gotta get something like that feels comfortable. That can't possibly feel comfortable.
So the question that they're getting at, and that everyone in the planning group seems to have caught on to, which is they need the motorcycles to be as close to the same weight as possible, because if one of them was weighed down more, then that is going to cause it to lag behind the others. So when Luna hears this, she's like, well, I know weight matters, but I've got the feeling that if Senku and I are on the same bike, then that'd work out great. And Chelsea, bizarrely enough, immediately realizes, like, oh, you've got a crush on Senku, don't you? And she says it in a way that's much more annoying than that, but I'm just going to limit it to that. Luna gets embarrassed very briefly, but then she's like, I mean, yeah, we're dating. We've got an average relationship between two cool, capable adults. And her followers are like, ah! And Haku's like, yeah, no, you don't. So we actually get the end of that conversation she had with Senku when they were on the Perseus, and she was going to offer to help if Senku would be her boyfriend. And Senku, you dumbass. So at least he was upfront with her when he was like, oh, so you want to have like a political marriage kind of thing. Well, you've got people who follow you around, right? Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. So he agreed to it on those terms because, yeah. So everyone hears this explanation, and Chelsea's just kind of like, yeah, it doesn't really sound like you're like a romantic item to me. And Luna's very upset to hear this. Her followers are very relieved. And Gog is like, yeah, I kind of figured that that was the case. Luna's not giving up though. So Senku whips up a scale using some tires, one as the fulcrum and a couple of others as the platforms. And he says that when he first revived, he actually made a ruler based off of his own height. And then he's like, and then if we use that, we can take 10 centimeters, 10 cubic centimeters of water is 1 kilogram. And they use that to make a set of weights that they can use the scales on. And so from that, they measure everyone's weight down to the nearest kilogram. We actually get everyone's weights that is in this group, and then they're added together, and they're all roughly around 200 kilograms. There is some interesting stuff in terms of Tsukasa is the heaviest. Out of the adults, Chelsea is the lightest, but then it's Francois, which is a little bit surprising. But then you think about they're pretty short. So they've balanced out the motorcycles. Cool. They ride their motorcycles.
Is sort of an odd detail that Zeno is paired with the 2 guys who are loyal to him, and you're like, I guess they're more loyal to Luna than him, but I'd still be a little sus about that.
I jokingly call them a certain name, just in jest, but apparently it's against Twitch's TOS now.
Can't do that.
Anyway, everyone rides their motorcycles up the mountain for 2 pages. And then the mountain gets too steep for their motorcycles. Oh no, Stanley is going to catch them in the plane that they have managed to fix and go after them. So everyone's like, what are we going to do? I mean, if we push our motorcycles up, we're going to lose too much time. Are we going to toss the bikes and cargo and go up that way with nothing but the stuff we can carry? But Senku says, no, we're not leaving anything behind. We're going to compete against that plane with a transport route born of science, a ropeway. I've never heard this thing called a ropeway before, but it's, those cars that go along cables, suspended.
I think I've always heard them as cable cars.
Mm-hmm. So, hooray, that's what they're planning on doing next.
Yeah, so, there's some fun stuff to this chapter. I think this was actually a really good chapter for Luna, as you kind of get to see more of her personality a little bit and get some kind of funny jokes at that expense. I'm sure if you're a big fan of the series too, you're going to get to enjoy kind of knowing a little bit more of the details about these characters. I mean, knowing their heights and weights isn't really that big of a deal, but, for some people, I think that's going to be a kind of fun thing to know and to use in analysis and things like that. However, Dr. Chelsea out loud says lull at one point in the chapter, so this is a 0 out of 10 for me, unfortunately, guys. I don't make the rules, but that's just how you have to score it.
Well, why don't you make the rules? Aren't you a lord?
You know what? I'm right. Stays a 0 out of 10 chapter.
All right then.
But the word simp is unbanned.
Let's move on to Mashle.
Let's talk about Mashle, Nick. Mashle, chapter 43. Mash, Burn Dead, and the Wondrous Wand Shop. So Mash starts the chapter by saying, and that's what happens. So he basically has described the events to his classmates. And they're like, oh, wow. You're embroiled with that group and you can't use magic? Got it. We need to have fun. That's all the context we get. They immediately are like, boom, we're going to hang out on Diagon Alley. Or sorry, Marquette Street. It's very different. Basically, it's like a hangout festival. So we see Finn there. He's like, cool, I'm going to hang around. Someone shows up in full, he's like, oh, I wonder how everyone dresses outside of school. So someone shows up in a full suit of armor, which I believe is Doubt. And he's like, fun's just another kind of battle. Finn's like, I don't know what the fuck that means. Yeah. So then someone says, I'm here. And Finn's like, oh, that has to be Mash. And Mash is rolling down the street with one of those ab machines. Yeah. And he's like, I've never gone out with friends before, so I wasn't sure what to wear. And they're like, so you chose this? Boy. Then Lance shows up. And Finn, for a moment, is like, oh, thank God, Lance is normal. And he, rips open his shirt and has a picture of his little sister on it. And he just says, love. So we get
that's his Superman reveal. The dun, 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 I'm a siscon.
So they joke. They're like, "Oh, hey!" They actually all start wearing normal attires after that, and they go to play a game where you like tickle a koala, and it shoots javelins of snot, and you play it like darts, which at first sounds really stupid. And then you remember some of the games they made up in the Harry Potter universe, and you're like, no, you know what? This is about on the same level as some of that stuff, so I'll go ahead with it.
What are you talking about, Chris? Look, the snitch is worth 15 times as many points as throwing a quaffle through a hoop, which can just be done back and forth. So.
I'm not saying the game is poorly designed, but you know what? I say that, isn't there like an actual Quidditch league in the real world where guys like run around on brooms and shit?
There is real world Quidditch, yes.
Man. Anyway, Doubt does it. He's like, it works out. Mash is like, I'll try it. Doubt's just, or actually, Doubt doesn't do it the first time. Someone else just does it. Mash watches and like, I'll try it. And Doubt's like, a beginner's not going to be able to hit the target. And the koala sneezes, just shoots an ice, like a snot icicle right into Doubt. Wait, now he's Dot. Or no, is that just what Mash says? He's Dot. That's right. Sorry, Dot.
It was Doubt at the beginning.
Yeah, I thought it was Dot and became Doubt, and now okay.
It's funny how that kind of confusion from inconsistency can arise. Yes.
Yeah, Mash burned dead, right? Or Van dead once again.
Van Dread.
So Dot
Van Dreddy.
Dot's like, all right, I'll show you how it's done, and basically just does the same thing. And Mash responds with a flying armbar. It just starts putting it on. They decide to go to the wand shop because Lance is like, I thought I might try a new wand for try. And then he brings up, he's like, hey, the rumor is the Divine Visionary Selection exam is near, and they're moving it forward because of Innocent Zero's influence, which is good for us. But, I want to let you know, Mash, I'm not going to make it easy on you. I want to become the divine visionary for this year as well. So, keeping that out there. So I do like the tease of like, hey, these guys are friends right now, but they're going to be enemies sometime soon. They go to the wand shop. There's a bit of a moment of like, hey, how you summon your wand is basically by just like channeling your magic power, and then it kind of brings a wand of that compatible nature to you. So Finn does it, gets a pretty normal looking wand. Lance does it and gets like this it looks like the obsidian keyblade essentially from Kingdom Hearts, where it's like all black and covered in like wrinkles and scars and shit like that. It's very dope and ridiculous. And Mash is like, oh wait, I see one that's like lodged in the floor over there. And the store owner's like, yeah, we've had that in the shop, but it's too heavy for anyone to lift. It's said that elf water springs up from beneath it, and that can be used to create magnificent wands, but it's no more than a legend. Not in 1,000 years has anyone with strength or magic been able to lift it. And of course, Mash's friends are like, what the fuck? Why did you do that, you dumbass? He's definitely going to do it right now. The guy's like, what? And Mash
why did you give the god hit points?
And Mash just immediately picks up the wand, just like, boink, I'll take this one. Then the water starts shooting up into the air. The guy has like 3 straight panels of being like, you can have the one. And there's just a little note that Lance didn't buy one either. So it's just like, why is it there? I will say this, Mash seems really fucking happy to have this wand. We get a moment where Lemon shows up where she's like, Lemon and Tom. I almost forgot Tom Fowles, Nick, remember?
Yeah.
They basically just have a series of fun little scenes together. It literally starts to dissolve in art style until they're all just stick figures going, yay! They all like have a moment where they're like, yeah, we're living our best student lives. And Mash just says, I had fun. I've never gone out with friends before. Let's come back sometime. And they agree. They're like, yep, we're all going to come back. That's chapter.
Bamboo,
yep. I forgot that was his character trait, so.
I forgot he was a character. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, come on.
But it was nice. It was nice to see, some characters playing off of each other. I legit do wish that it hadn't just been the hero squad that we got for, the rescue mission last time, and that Lemon had actually been there to interact with them, because as a result of that whole thing, Lemon has not really gotten to bounce off of a lot of the characters as much as they've already gotten to bounce off of each other. So it would have been nice to have a bit of extra with that. If she's going to be an important character, or at least a relevant character, it would be nice to see more sides of her that way. But what we did get was really good. I love the weird fight that Dot and Mash have after impaling each other's skulls with snot icicles. And I also like the little bit of like, hey, everyone kind of got a little bit of power up from these wands, and there's this wand that is completely useless to everyone else because it's too fucking heavy, but in Mash's hands, it'll probably be really helpful because it's, super heavy, so you could use it to club people with it, presumably. So I like this, yes.
Yeah, I think it's a very little fun chapter. Small, but fun. I'll look forward to seeing where we go now that, Mash has like a lead pipe to nail people with.
Let's move on to Ayakashi Triangle, Chapter 25, The Lightning Fast Father. They are going to Nino Kuru's house because Matsuri's like, we can train together. He's got a dojo. He warned Suzu's like, it might be boring. You could just like stay home. But Suzu's like, no, I want to go too. And Shirogane is like, I wanted to go home and eat Suzudango dumplings. And Suzu's like, I'll just give you twice as much when we get back. And Matsuri is like, yeah, all right, I'm going to improve myself and I'll gain confidence. And Suzu just thinking to herself, I can't let those two be alone, because the last chapter ended with Matsuri landing all over Ninokuru. So she's getting very protective of him now. So they go to Ninokuru's place. It's, old style Japanese home. It looks like, an old style dojo from the outside. So, but Po rushes outside begging them for help because he says he's going to be killed because of my blunder. They go inside. Ninokuru is being beaten up by his father, Muga, and he says, Panosuke told me, you fell in love and you got your heart broken, but now you're tempted by the Kazamaki boy who turned into a girl. Pull yourself together. I can't believe you. It's too early for you to be caught up in love. And Nyokuru's like, no, you're wrong. He's a guy. He's my rival. And he's trying to go after his father, who is carrying a small dish filled with sake, who he dodges out of the way as Ninokuru tries to lunge for it. And he then smacks him on the back of the neck with a bottle of sake. And he drinks from the cup and it says, it's been four hours. This is never going to be over at this rate. All you have to do is make me spill a drop of this sake and the spar is over. So we've established the rules of the spar there. Matsuri shows up, of course, is worried about his friend. And Ninokuru's father is like, he looks a lot like his mother now. So, all right. And then he looks over at Suzu and he is like, she's now she's the Ayakashi medium. There's the former king of Ayakashi, Shirogane. The higher-ups have a grasp on the situation. It's not my concern. So, good to know, the council seems to, be aware of things and could potentially get involved down the line. So, just nice to have that. So, he kind of mocks Matsuri at that point, saying, you are quite beautiful. I can see why my son is distracted. And Matsuri's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And Ninokuru's father says, don't drag my son down a path of impurity. Are you enjoying the fact that you turned into a girl, Lady Matsuri? And Matsuri's like, there is nothing impure going on between the two of us, which Ninokuru is, I guess, upset about because a sound effect goes off by his head that goes, sting. I don't know. He's got hormones, man. So.
Yeah, it's very complicated for him right now.
Matsuri tries to go after the sake, but has just as little luck as Ninokuru. He appears to have summoned doubles, and so for a moment, Suzu thinks that he is using the Omokage technique, but Shirogane is like, no, that's an Ayakashi technique. He is just using footwork. This is a ninja jutsu. So Matsuri is, going after him as hard as he can, but he can never seem to get him. He just slips away. So Muga starts mocking Matsuri again, and then he's like, with this superhuman skill at will, this is the essence of the lightning fast Ninokuru clan. So do you understand, Soga? Both of you could come on me, fledglings. So Matsuri and Ninokuru start to go after each other. Oh no, Matsuri collides with Ninokuru as his father dodges out of the way. So the two fall on each other. Matsuri is just pissed off about this, but Ninokuru gets distracted when he gets a flash of cleavage, and Suzu's upset about this as well. Ninokuru's father is like, "Oh, you're blushing. Are you having fun?" Which gets him pissed off. Matsuri's like, "Hold on, I've thought of something." And he says the jutsu that he's using combines two opposing elements of super fast and super slow. We can do the same. You and me. And in a nice little touch, when he says this, Ninokuru looks at him and he just sees Matsuri's male body. So in that moment, all the distraction is gone. He just sees his friend and ally again. So the two go after him. Ninokuru is like moving around really quickly, but it's just a distraction. His father realizes this, and he's like, yeah, Kazumaki's going to try and come after me when I'm unguarded. Not going to work. But then he notices that the wind is moving. He's like, what is he going to do? And suddenly Matsuri latches onto Ninokuru's waist and basically narrates to explain that, in that last battle that they were in, he has now mastered the windless formation. And so he is creating a wind flow in front of Ninokuru, decreasing wind resistance, which allows Ninokuru to move even faster. And Ninokuru thinks to himself, I don't even feel Kazumaki's weight. And it's not just that. My body feels lighter. And with the extra boost of speed, he is able to knock the sake cup from his father's hand, and they've managed to win the spar. And Shirogane is... So Panosuke is the one who's like, oh, hey, so amazing. But Suzu is just like, because they've gotten closer, and she's squeezing Shirogane, who is suffering. So Ninokuru's father's like, you got me. I guess I was wrong. You two are a good match. I approve of your courtship. And of course, they're pissed off at him for saying such a thing. And Ninokuru's father's just like, well, as long as the jutsu holds, he's a girl, so no problem, right? And a paper crane comes in between them and blasts them apart. And Suzu's really pissed off. He's like, don't be ridiculous. Matsuri is a boy. And so they start arguing with each other, because Ninokuru's father is like, these two are getting married, and Suzu's like, no, yes, no, and that's where the chapter ends. It's a very weird ending.
Yeah, it is an odd ending. I don't know. There's some large discussions that have been had in our Discord recently about some of the elements of Ayakashi Triangle, and I will say I enjoy aspects of this chapter purely on like the technical battle side of it, and the idea of kind of continuing to develop this relationship between Matsuri and Shark Boy, whose name I always forget.
Sure.
And I kind of like the dad character is like this, meaner Shark Boy, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know properly how to really consume a lot of the way the story does gender and how gender relates to one another. Like, that's just the part that's very difficult to really find a center on. So I tend to enjoy Ayakashi Triangle the less it deals with it and more just deals on these characters having a relationship, because that's just the more interesting part.
I mean, when Ninokuru just looks at Matsuri's body and he's distracted because he's a hormonal teenager and Matsuri happens to now have the body of an attractive, woman, then that's one thing. And he is dealing with the complicated situation as best he can. But when an adult dude comes in and is like, hey, you two should be a couple now, it's just like, what the fuck? That is so weird on so many grounds. And it is an unwelcome input. Like, it's...
Yeah.
And it's made out to be just like a joke. And it's like... And the way that he says, as long as the jutsu holds, he's a girl, so there's no problem. It's like, that's really messed up. in ways that you probably don't realize as you're writing that joke into your manga. So it's weird because it's like when this stuff is just being dealt with by the confused teenagers who are caught up in a bizarre situation, I feel it's easier to just kind of accept it on the terms that the manga is trying to present them on, even though they don't really fly in the real world. But when there is a more mature adult stance and also an outsider more explicitly calling Matsuri a girl, then it becomes more difficult to look past those things. So as for the chapter itself, I like big chunks of it. I like, the way that Matsuri and Ninokuru, take a step forward as teammates, and I like the way that their techniques combine together so that they win this little spar. And I like some of the jokes that are in it. But that is a very, very difficult thing to look past when you get into, like, especially because you just know this is going to be this guy's thing going forward, isn't it?
Probably.
Anytime Ninakuru's dad shows up in the future, it's going to be like, hey, you should marry that Matsuri kid who's a girl now. And it's going to be like, that's not the way things are, the way you define them. And it's going to upset me every time that it gets brought up. So I don't look forward to that being a thing unless, at the very least, it's framed in a different way than it was framed in this chapter.
Yeah. All right, Nick, let's move on to Black Clover. Page 275, Hellfire Incarnate. So we start with Nature Boy Ric Flair basically explaining the plan. There's the big ritual spell that's going to be used to connect the underworld to the current world. Has 3 key points with Yami and William Vengeance in the middle. They can't just take William Vengeance and Yami or they would die. So they have to disrupt all 3 of the things. Basically, we have to fight the mooks to actually get into the real fight of everything here and stop the plan. So they divide the team into 3 different groups. There's quite a few characters who don't seem to go along with this, like Seke and things like that don't seem to follow along. So, a couple of them I assume will just show up later, like Rades and Sally and everyone's favorite character, the boy band guy who got a character in Black Clover, because he's also on this mission, I believe. But the 3 groups divide up.
I managed to forget about him since last week, and so you just mentioned him now, so thanks for that.
I want to try to find a way to bring him up every week, like even like years from now. Find a way to make it happen. And Nick, they all...
You remember when we covered a series called Black Clover?
Oh,
like what?
It's me
on... a boy band member, and it's... God damn it, Chris!
It's me on my deathbed, like, Nick, I have to tell you where the Vault of Treasure is. But first,
Vault of Treasure?
Yeah, it's like the flying hellfish from Simpsons. Like it's we have like some vault that once each of us dies, the remaining members get like the keys. The last one gets it, which is weird. There's only 2 of us, so. But I'm just like, I'll tell you where it is. But first, do you remember that there was that one boy band member in Black Clover?
And just take the pillow and smother you.
They do the thing where like you're storming a bad guy hideout and a bunch of people are going to come to interrupt you. So like, you guys go on ahead. We'll stay behind. So it looks like Nozel, Fuego, Leon, and Dorothy are taking that role for their respective teams. Cut over to Mary Liliana, and she's fighting the big monster thing. And she's like, oh, wait, man, that thing's tough. I can't just hit it with my magic, because it won't work on it. So we get a flashback to when she meets Nature Boy Ric Flair, and she was like hanging out in lava. And basically the dude was just like, look, I'll find you an opponent to like help you gauge your training. And that's it. So it was a great flashback. Anyway, she got stronger. She coats herself in flame magic, uses Hellfire Incarnate, and seems like she is beating this thing now because she can kick and punch now. She does full mana release and burns them away. So presumably that thing's dead forever. Or they isn't. Who knows? And the chapter ends with us seeing the different groups that are kind of like confronting different people. We see Charlotte and Rill meeting up with Vanica, the Yuno and Langris, is that his name? Meeting up with Zeno.
Yes.
And then Jack the Ripper, the great hero Jack the Ripper, and other character meeting up with who is presumably Dante. We don't. Is that Noct? Yeah, that's right, Noct. Sorry, Nature Boy Flare. Almost got the name wrong. We don't see much.
I'm so sorry that I led you down that path and forced you to break that.
Yeah. Well, I'll forgive you. We don't see Dante, so we'll leave that mystery of how human he even is anymore. But yep, that's a chapter.
Yep, it was a chapter, all right.
I'm sure the chapter is kind of cool if you like Mario Leona, but we don't.
If you like Mario Leona, then if you like Mario Leona, it gives you like everything. It's like, hey, you want to see Mario Leona kick ass? Here it is. Hey, you want to see Mario Leona have a dramatic conversation? Here it is. Hey, you want to see Mario Leona interact with Noct? Here it is. Hey, you want to see Mario Leona's naked fucking body? Here it is. So there you go. It's everything people wanted from her previous appearances, and also she very briefly talked to the new cool character. So I'm sure that they gave it a bunch of thumbs up. So
yep.
One Piece.
Da 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 da. Oh wait, hold on. I gotta get my friends here.
Yeah.
Da 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 da. All my friends are here. Da da da.
Ancient types. Onigashima has taken off into the air. Mark of the Phoenix showed up in the party scene. Chopper is running around screaming because Marco casts some flames towards him.
You remember last chapter where I was like, you know what I really appreciate? That they set up this thing. There's this big ice disease and a doctor with magic flames is going to come solve it. And they said, no, Chopper's going to solve that issue. Well, don't worry, because it actually turns out Marco will kind of also solve the problem. Not completely. Chopper's going to develop the antibodies, but yeah.
Along with the mink doctors that showed up on Zoe. Remember that whole thing where he helped them in order to save Cat Viper and Dockstrom's lives? They're here. Hooray.
Yeah, Nick, so I want to tease out the fact that there's going to be a accompanying break sometime soon. And instead of just doing nothing during that week or something like that, we're going to actually, I think, do the idea we suggested before where we're both going to quiz one another on respectively My Hero Academia and One Piece characters to see who knows the most about the cast that they clearly are like, you're the one who actually knows about it. And the prize at the end of it, whoever wins will get a veto, I think. So the veto's in play again. I'll let you know.
We're actually going to have a veto in the bank match.
Yes.
So
whoever climbs the ladder by fucking knowing who these characters are first wins it. I will note Miyagi would not be on there because I don't know who the fuck Miyagi is. I don't even know that's a thing. That's just that they just made up a character right there, I presume.
All right. They're going to support Chopper as he tries to make more antibodies from the stuff that they've got. Also, Marco's a good fighter, so he's just casting flames everywhere. But everyone who's got the ice on anything is just like, hey, this fire is not actually burning me. It's just like, hey, it's fine, cool. We're all gonna work out here. Queen is pissed off, and he tells people like, hey, steal those antibodies back. The enemy isn't going to bother saving you. And they're like, you think so? And Chopper's like, I'm going to save everyone. Because, he's Chopper. Anyway. X-Drake. It's a big extra special reintroduction thing when Apu tries to take the antibodies back, and he just turns into his full Allosaurus form and just goes and bites Apu and stops him. He's like, hey, if you're capable of seeing me as a true ally, then go and leave this to me. And Zoro's like, well, at least you got talent for picking the winning horse. So it's like, yeah, I'm gonna go and fight some guys and go up to the roof. Marco has actually offered to fly him up there. We go over to where Luffy and Jinbei are, and they're like, where is Sanji? Maybe he sensed a powerful foe and is keeping them down on the 3rd floor off our back. And Luffy's like, oh okay.
He kind of is, I guess.
Wait, yes. Jinbei says like, all right, the same is going on this floor though. So one of us needs to stay here. I'll make sure there's an opening. Keep going, Luffy. So split things down and gets one-on-one fights going. Seems to be what is happening all throughout this chapter, basically. Frankie uses his tank robot thing to launch some missiles into people in the mission. So Sasaki is like, all right, everyone, make way. And he steps forward and he knocks Frankie over on his ass. And he's revealed to have a Triceratops Zoe model. So, and he's a Triceratops who's got the marine hat, which is.
Oh, can we just stop to appreciate that Sasaki has the best fucking design? When I saw this 2-page spread, I was like, fuck yeah, Sasaki is the best member of the Toby Robo because that design is fucking dope.
Triceratops, hair, naval hat, yeah. I like Frankie's reaction too, which is, so you were a dinosaur. Apparently, yes. Over to Sanji. He is trying to run away from the people who captured him. He's running, but his hands are still tied up, and he manages to trip and fall over. Just as he is confronted by Black Maria, who has revealed her midway transformed form, which is that she has a spider fruit, ancient type, Rosami Gale Grauvogeli model. I'm guessing some form of ancient spider thing.
Yes, it's apparently a prehistoric spider that, if you look into it, is actually like extraordinarily small. That's like the only real detail about it. So
cool. So she has him cornered along with the other women who were, part of the trap. And so she's like, I've got to get out of here. But no matter which way I look, women, what is this place? Heaven? And the girl's just like, what is wrong with this guy? And then we cut over to where Jinbei has now split from Luffy, and he is confronting Big Cats. Who's who of the Toby Rappo?
Fuck, I forgot. Cat. Never mind. Who's the best design? Fuck, that's so dope.
He is a saber-toothed tiger cat devil fruit user. He's a giant saber-toothed cat with who's weird horned masks thing and a cigarette awkwardly sticking out of one side of his mouth. So they're like, you should have Straw Hat's gone on. He's going to bother Kaido now, so stop picking on my subordinates. Have a little pride, former warlord of the sea. And Jinbei says, I'd prefer my more prestigious title, Helmsman of the Straw Hat Crew. What an awesome guy.
That is
that quote demotion in with more pride.
That is so much of a badass moment. It deserves so much more drama to it, but it's such a great way to set up this introduction. It's great.
Yeah. And there's kind of a funny moment because Who's Who says, oh, sorry, I just thought of that because I once saw you when you were a warlord, but it doesn't matter. And Jinbei's kind of surprised by this because, maybe if I saw your face, I would recognize you. And Who's Who says, too bad you'll never see it. So, oh no, another identity that we have to discover in One Piece. Who is that masked individual?
Who is Who's Who?
Is it Mr. Tubon Clay?
Is it Jin from from way back when?
Weren't you kind of pulling for that to be?
Yeah, I
think you were kind of pulling.
Yeah, I'll pull for fucking anybody to be Jin because I just want that plot line to pick back. Not even a plot line. It's just a character they met that Sanji had a friendly relationship with. That I'm just like, I hope he shows up again.
You got to be a fan. Meanwhile, over somewhere else in the dome, I'm not even sure exactly where they are because I don't think any important characters are actually around them. Page One and Ulti burst through a wall, and they're in their full dinosaur forms. Ulti is full giant Pachycephalosaurus, and they're just kind of like, where did they go? Because apparently they've just completely lost track of Usopp and Nami. And Ulti vows to split Nami's skull in two, which she could do. She has very scary headbutts. And then we cut to somewhere hidden inside the dome in a storeroom, where Yamato has managed to get Shinobu himself and Momonosuke hidden away, and they're looking up at this giant dragon statue thing. And Yamato's like, yeah, it's a statue of a dragon. In the past, it was placed at the entrance to the island, but my friend destroyed it, so they discarded the statue here. And Momosuke's like, your friend? And Yamato says, yes, a man who came here years ago to kill my father. And we get a silhouette of Ace behind him. And yeah, so remember when Toko brought up that Ace had been to Wano before, and we thought the flashback was going to be about him, and then it wasn't?
So we're getting the Ace flashback now, because you can see the corners of the panel are turning black. We're getting another flashback, which is perfect Oda timing to just be like, I want you to fucking just about like edging you with fucking content. Like these fights are about to pop off. But I do have one quick 7-chapter long fucking flashback to do. Like, God damn it.
I'm going to do this Wano arc into 2022.
It's, you know what's annoying me though? Because, you know, every year we do we do like a retrospective or whatever. We always do like, hey, Nick, do you remember where this chapter was at the start?
Nope.
You're never not going to be able to remember where One Piece was because it was fucking chapter 1000. Like, there's no way that won't be able to be like, oh yeah, One Piece was on chapter 1000.
I don't know, Chris. You doubt my abilities to forget things.
Maybe, I suppose.
Or apply dates and times to individual memories, I guess. Yeah.
But fuck yeah, this was an awesome chapter. I love seeing the different Toby Ropo members like in their full forms. This is reveals for 3 of them. Obviously, we know new Page 1 and Ulti, and X-Drake technically gets in on it too. He also gets the same kind of 2-page treatment, but he's an ally now. But I'm so fucking jazzed for Sasaki versus Frankie. I can't even fucking I can't even like put it into words.
Robot versus Triceratops.
And I was like, nothing's gonna beat that. And then I was like, holy shit, fucking Saber-Tooth Tiger, who's who versus Jinbei? I fucking can't wait for, like, I just started drooling at the mouth a little bit and spitting. Like, I'm fucking falling apart at the seams. I'm so excited for those fights, Nick. Oh, I can't wait.
I think that this is a great chapter for, like, if you're a One Piece fan and you're used to the way the One Piece does things, then I think that this is a good chapter for you. I think that if you've been frustrated with the way One Piece has been going for the last few years, or, well, since the time skip, really, this is probably going to be about the same for you. But I thought there were some cool designs once you got to see the full ancient animal forms. I do like to see, hey, finally, we're getting these one-on-one, well, one Straw Hat against, you know, a small, manageable group of opponents set up. It's exciting. And, yeah, I am curious to see where the hell this whole thing with Ace is going to go, because apparently he did have an important role. He had some influence on some people a few years before we're currently at. So
I do have one question, though, and that is, what happened with Kid? Because we knew Kid was on the 3rd floor and ahead of Luffy's group, and Jinbei had to stay behind to let Luffy go on ahead. So I'm wondering if, like, did Kid just sneak past Who's Who, or did Who's Who let him go? Or is Kid just hanging back and is like, oh, someone else is dealing with him now, I'll sneak on through, or something like that?
Yeah, I'm sure a Kid could be very sneaky with that mountain of junk he's got trailing behind him right now. I have no idea.
Yeah. We shall see. But yeah, really cool.
All right, that is going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap, guys. We've been going for a while. Chris, what was your favorite series this week, and who was your MVP?
You know, I want to give it to Chainsaw Man, because Chainsaw Man was really, really cool. But I got so fucking hyped at that One Piece chapter, I'd be lying if I gave it to anything else. It's gonna be One Piece. I'm sorry. I'm a fucking I can't call myself the S word anymore. And I'm also that for Mashle less than One Piece. But this is a really great One Piece chapter. I don't know. I just got really excited thinking about it.
I am going to give mine to draw out the words so that I can make a decision as I'm looking over stuff. I'm gonna give mine to Mashle.
Okay, wow.
I just liked the hangout stuff, the more laid back kind of setting that we got with everyone. There were a lot of good chapters this week. I really liked Magu, I liked My Hero, I liked Kaiju No. 8, and we never learned was the best. It's been in 2 months. That's not saying very much. But I don't know, something about the way that it just kind of played out, and we got to see everyone being friendly and everything. Those are kind of becoming my favorite things in Mashle, even though it does so many other things so very well. Who's your MVP?
MVP's tough. I want to give it to Denji, but honestly, Denji's not as great in that chapter as like the whole of the chapter is per se. So I wouldn't say he's particularly memorable. For a hot moment, oh man, I'm gonna let you go because I'm debating if I'm gonna do this or not.
I'm actually gonna give mine to Pochita on the other end of that for, just that nice little speech that he had about, in this way that devils have their own very human desires to them. Like, I'm lonely and I want to be with someone. And, Pochita's like, you granted my wish by being someone who would hold me when I couldn't have that before. And that's why I'm, entrusting the control devil to you. So can you do that for her? And it's just a very sweet little thing that happens. And although he's not in the majority of the chapter, I think that it's like, hey, it's nice to have this reminder that Pochita is this very, very influential force in all of Chainsaw Man. So.
I almost gave mine to Ghost Dad because I really do love that Yuega's dad forced Ghost into the wedding. But I reading through it, yeah, the correct answer I think is Mr. Compress. I had actually forgotten about that until the moment. I was like, you know what? If he was only ever going to do one thing in the manga, it was a pretty cool thing to have done. So I do dig it. The audience, by the way, agreed with Mr. Compress as their character of the week, and Chainsaw Man Vroom Vroom was the chapter of the week.
All right. Well, that is going to do it, everyone. We want to thank you for joining us for Weekly Manga Recap. We record the show here on twitch.tv/RoloT Wednesday, starting sometime between 7:30 and 8 Eastern in the evening. But you can also follow us on social media, at WMR Podcast, at RoloT, at Nick F. Time, to get reminded on exactly when we're going to start recording the show. You can also get that notification if you join us on our Discord server, where we have a wonderful community that talks about manga, does all sorts of other things as well. There's an RP channel. People talk about video games. People share NSFW stuff. There's just a lot of stuff that happens. And we also have a weekly Among Us session each Saturday morning. So if you want to join in and have some murdery times with everyone, join us.
You can't kill me because it's not my birthday anymore. So you can just go ahead and kill me anymore, I guess. Fucking Credo. Dickhead. I'm going to fucking vent him the next, or whatever. Drop him in lava or whatever. I don't know what the words are. They're confusing. They scare me, Nick.
You can also use that to find the WMR Google Doc maintained by Ninja X3i that has all sorts of information that is helpful to newcomers to the podcast. Hey, what kind of stuff have you covered before? There is a list of all the series that we've taken as recommendations. There's a list of, the MVPs and favorite series and stuff like that. There is a whole list of supplemental awards that we do at the end of the year, which is coming up fast, that you can also vote on. So, helpful doc on there. We also give special thanks to Steve Mann, our tower artist. You can check him out wherever boobs are allowed to be drawn. And Milo Jack Stillitz and Wensleydale Cheddar for making the opening sequence of Weekly Manga Recap. And everyone who supports us on Patreon, patreon.com/Weekly Manga Recap, where we create bonus content for you guys to enjoy.
Yes. So there is going to be a regular episode next week. I know we'll be kind of close to Christmas, but I don't believe either of us have an issue with recording next week.
No, Chris, I've got to get on 5 flights. Just go everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm not visiting anyone, but I'm going on 5 flights.
Yeah. Well, I always like to check. So we're gonna have a regular chapter. I imagine the week after that is where we're going to probably do a retrospective or something along those lines. But I wanted to clear up because I had to consider how much time was going to be left before the new year started, and I said, you know what? Fuck it. Let's start next year with a long series.
Oh, no.
Well, what's the no for, Nick?
I'm just bracing myself. I'm not sure exactly what you're going for.
Well, what I'll say is it's only 25 volumes long.
Okay.
For our next recommendation, we're going to be checking out Golden Kamui.
Oh, I'm very happy now.
Yeah. I thought I'd try to.
That's going to be it's got to be a nice wintry series to start the year off on too.
It's been getting a lot of press recently. It's free currently on Jump, I believe, or on Viz. So,
yes,
cool stuff.
Awesome. I look forward to it. So.
All right, that's gonna do it. I now have to reign over my spot in Scotland, so I have to. There's big changes coming, guys, for my I think 5x5 plot of land. That you're
gonna be like. You've got like the ambition of like Lillian in Kimmy Schmidt when she got voted onto the city council, and she's like, "I'm gonna make some changes. I'm gonna stop everything."
Yeah, well, like it specifically says like on my certificate, like you can't fuck with the land at all. So I'm gonna have to like find a way to create like a platform that's raised above it and then build all my stuff on top of it. I'm thinking like a giant tower with like a flaming eye at the top.
But it's got like those earthquake stilts at the very bottom.
Yeah.
Under the tower.
Oh, a single wind, like not even like a storm. A really strong breeze will knock it down and set fire to everyone's land. But I'm the Lord now, so I'm gonna make some big changes over here. First of all, we're not Scotland anymore. We're Chrisland. I don't know who Scott is. Fuck him. Chrisland is where we're at now.